President. We
What?
are live on YouTube right now. Couple
I
minutes
had no
behind.
idea we were going live so early, Brad.
So, Mr. President, the debate's about to start, and we're live on YouTube. I think we're live on Rumble. Let me check here.
I told everybody it was a televised event, but I lied. I'm actually here with you.
Yes, you are, Mr. President, and I'm always grateful that you're here. And here they are. Here's how this is going to work when they're introducing it here. What we're going to do is we're going to let it breathe and we're going to watch it, but we might jump in a little bit, make some comments, and then during the commercial breaks, we will give our grades or reviews of the previous segment. Maybe we'll do something, maybe come up with some new nicknames based on how everything's going. Does that sound good, Mr. President?
Oh yeah, I'm all about making some nicknames, Brad. I've been thinking about it all day.
Fantastic.
That's what I've been thinking about is all the nicknames after tonight.
I can't wait to hear what you came up with. And here we go. There's the 5 candidates. Let me get this up on screen. I got to show it to you guys.
Follow-ups will be at the discretion of all of us at the table, the moderators.
Invoking
a candidate's name or policy does not necessarily mean the mentioned candidate is entitled to a response. We want to caution all the candidates not to interrupt or speak over your fellow debaters. If you talk over each other, the voters can't hear you. And given the critical issues we're facing specifically on the world stage, we want everyone to hear every word you have to say. Continued interruptions may result in loss of additional questions. And to our audience, please hold your applause so that the candidates can be heard. With that said, let's have a good debate.
Let's have a good debate.
All right, our first question, the opening question, is one for all of you.
We have 1 out of 3
Trump
CIA
is the first ex-president in more than 100 years to run for the White House again. And he remains popular among Republican primary voters as his legal challenges mount. Governor DeSantis, let me begin with you on this one. Speak to Republican voters who are supporting Donald Trump. Why should you and not him be the Republican nominee to face Joe Biden a year from now?
This country is in trouble, and the elites that have put us here, they don't care about you. They don't care that you're having to grapple with higher grocery prices or have higher gas prices. They don't care that your family's less secure because of the open border that's allowed drugs and even terrorists to come into this country. Well, I care. I am not going to sit idly by and let this country continue its downward spiral. We need leadership, and we need it now. I'll take the hits, I'll take the arrows, I'll take the slings, because ultimately it's not about me. It's about you.
That's my
life. I will fight for you.
I literally said that.
I will make sure to lead this country's revival, and I will win for you and your family. Actions speak louder than words. We don't have time for excuses, and it's not something that we're going to be able to have all these distractions. As a veteran, I will get the job done. Now, if you look where we are now, it's a lot different than where we were in 2016. And Donald Trump's a lot different guy than he was in 2016. He owes it to you to be on this stage and explain why he should get another chance. He should explain why he didn't have Mexico pay for the border wall. He should explain why he racked up so much debt. He should explain why he didn't drain the swamp. And he said Republicans were going to get tired of winning. Well, we saw last night, I'm sick of Republicans losing. In Florida, I showed how it's done. 1 year ago here, we want a historic victory, including a massive landslide right here in Miami-Dade County. That's how we have to do it. So I promise you this, as the nominee, next November I'll get the job done, and as president, I will deliver
your time
for
is
you.
up. Let me turn to Ambassador
That's what I call, Mr. President, slitting throats question 1.
Ambassador Haley, why you and not the former president?
Well, I think you look at the fact that we're almost $34 trillion in debt. 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. 50% of American families can't afford diapers. 1 in 6 American families can't pay their utility bills. You have...
Oh, that's great right there. It freezes up on
buffering.
Let's get a refresh here, see if I can find a better stream.
Buffering.
1 in 6 American families can't pay their utility bills. You have...
Oh, good gosh.
Buffering.
fact that he used to be right on Ukraine and foreign issues. Now he's getting weak in the knees and trying to be friendly again. I think that we've got to go back to the fact that we can't live in the past. We can't live in other headlines. We've got to start focusing on what's going to make America strong and proud. And that's what I'm focused on doing. Let's make sure we pay down our debt. I think we need an accountant in the White House. Let's make sure that we have transparency in the classroom. As a mom, I know what that means. Let's make sure we secure our borders so that our families are safe. Let's get crime down because our families want to know that they can be safe no matter where they go. And as the wife of a combat veteran, I will tell you, the military needs to know we have our back, and we need to make sure that America is strong.
Ambassador, thank you very much.
Nikki Haley, nuke 'em, Nikki. 40 for war.
Let me just caution the audience.
The
Let's
ice
not go down this
queen,
road.
Nikki
We've asked you,
Haley.
please, keep restraining yourselves, and would be helpful so we can hear the candidates, because these are important issues, and the voters want and need to hear them. Mr. Ramaswamy, let me turn to you. Please make your case. Why would you?
There he is.
Why should you be the nominee, not the former president?
Ramaswamy.
I think there's something deeper going on in the Republican Party here, and I am upset about what happened last night. We've become a party of losers at the end of the day. It was a cancer to the Republican establishment. Let's speak the truth. I mean, since Ronna McDaniel took over as chairwoman of the RNC in 2017, we have lost 2018, 2020, 2022, no red wave that never came. We got trounced last night in 2023. And I think that we have to have accountability in our party. For that matter, Ron, if you want to come on stage tonight, you want to look the GOP voters in the eye and tell them you resign, I will yield my time to you. And frankly, look, the people there cheering for losing in the Republican Party. Think about who's moderating this debate. This should be Tucker Carlson, Joe Rogan, and Elon Musk. We'd have 10 times the viewership, asking questions that GOP primary voters actually care about and bringing more people into our party. Do you think the Democrats, and we've got Kristen Welker here, do you think the Democrats would actually hire Greg Gutfeld to host a Democratic debate? They wouldn't do it. And so the fact of the matter is, I mean, Kristen, I'm going to use this time because this is actually about you in the media and the corrupt media establishment. Ask you, the Trump-Russia collusion hoax that you pushed on this network for years.
Call Cooper gay.
Was that real, or was that Hillary Clinton made up disinformation?
Gay
Answer the question. Go.
Mr. Ross.
This is how we get our country back.
Now he came out slitting throats. Question one.
Yeah, he's like an angry little
election with the Hunter
micro
Biden laptop
machine
story, and they're going to rig this election.
The micro machine.
Let me turn to
Remember the micro machine man from the 80s who talked really fast?
Can you bump your audio up a bit,
Mr.
Mr. President?
Let's not do this. Let's let the
I said,
candidates
you remember
speak.
that micro
Steve,
machine
why
man
you
from
and not
the
former
80s?
President Trump?
Oh, here's your arch rival.
Well, Lester, look, you said it at the beginning of the debate. We are dealing with extraordinarily important issues facing this country right now. We have our greatest ally in the Middle East under fire from a terrorist group that has committed to wiping them and every
I told you they were gonna
Jewish
bring this
person
up. I knew
in
it.
this world off the map.
Of course, it's easy.
We have Ukraine with Vladimir Putin, a communist KGB
He's going to
dictator
tie
who wants
Putin
to put the old band
and
back
Hamas
together.
to you, Mr. President. That's my
He's
prediction.
starting in Ukraine, and he's going to move to the Baltics and Poland after that. We have inflation in this country that is choking every American family.
That's not the
that
only
wants to
thing he's
try
going to be
rise up
tying things to.
and give their children a
Hot
better
dogs,
life.
hamburgers,
And
pizza
tonight,
cars.
we need to decide which president is going to be the one to tackle the big issues, who's going to make this country look once again, not just inward, but look outward at the world and say America is the country, the indispensable nation that makes this a safer world. And in a safer world, American innovation, American hard work has always been the thing that has driven our country to greater things. I'm going to be the president who will do those big things.
No, you're not.
We're not going to be small, and I'll say this about Donald Trump. Anybody who's going to be spending the next year and a half of their life focusing on keeping themselves out of jail and courtrooms cannot lead this party or this country,
All right,
and it
Governor.
needs to be said plainly.
Governor, thank you. Let me turn to Senator Scott. Senator Scott, you've said former President
I'm glad
Trump
Anderson could
can't
come
win.
back from
Make your
Israel
case
to do
Republican
the debate
voters.
here.
Well, certainly. What I would say without any question is that the truth of my life destroys the lies of the radical left. We need a president and a candidate who will actually help our base solidify and attract independent voters into our party. The Great Opportunity Party is now winning back African-American voters and Hispanic voters because we are working on a foundation based on faith. Our nation is facing some deep challenges. It is the loss of faith in this nation that is part of the erosion that we're seeing every single day. It's restoring faith, restoring our Christian values that will help this nation once again become the city on the hill. When Ronald Reagan talked about the city on the hill, he was coming from Matthew 5. When President Lincoln talked about a house divided, that was Mark. Our founding documents speak to the importance of a faith foundation. You don't have to be a Christian for America to work for you, but America does not work without a faith-filled Judeo-Christian foundation. I would be the president that helps us restore faith in God, faith in each other, and faith in our future. Without that focus, none of the issues, the policy matter. We have to get back to being a nation that is, in fact, the city on the hill, that believes in each other enough for us to fight
Scott,
for that future.
Senator Scott, thank you.
That was a racist way to cut him off.
The next commander-in-chief. You'll all be fielding questions first from me and the Republican Jewish Coalition. And then
look at that guy. Is that Jesus back there in the back left?
So as we continue forward, the Israel-Hamas war is barely a month old. Tonight, Israeli troops are fighting inside Gaza City with over 200 hostages who remain captive there, and civilian casualties mount inside Gaza. As President of the United States, what would you be urging Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to do at this moment? Governor DeSantis.
I would be telling Bibi, finish the job once and for all with these butchers, Hamas.
He'd be telling him to slit throats.
They're massacring innocent people. They would wipe every Jew off the globe if they could. He cannot live with that threat right by his country. That Hamas should release every hostage and they should unconditionally surrender. I'm sick of hearing the media, I'm sick of hearing other people blame Israel just for defending itself. We will stand with Israel in word and in deed, in public and in private. And I can tell you, as governor, I actually did something about it. Biden's neglect has been atrocious. We had Floridians that were over there after the attack. He left them stranded. They couldn't get flights out. So I scrambled resources in Florida. I sent planes over to Israel, and I brought back over 700 people to safety. There could have been more hostages had we not acted. And I'll tell you,
they were all what?
They were all Floridians.
When they came to Florida, and one of the mothers pointed to a 6-year-old daughter, and she said, my daughter had been saying the last 2 nights, Mommy, I don't want to hear any more bombs, no more rockets. I just want to get back to Florida. So there's a difference between words and deeds. We acted and we saved lives.
Thank you. Ambassador Haley, what would you do? What would you be urging Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to do? Would you consider humanitarian pause, for example?
The first thing I said to him when it happened was I said, finish them. Finish them.
She is
and the reason is I worked on this every day when I was at the United Nations. And we have to remember that they have to, 1, eliminate Hamas, 2, support Israel with whatever they need whenever they need it, and 3, make sure we bring our hostages home. We need to be very clear-eyed to know there would be no Hamas without Iran. There would be no Hezbollah without Iran. There would not be the Houthis without Iran. And there wouldn't be the Iranian militias in Syria and Iraq that are trying to hit our military men and women if it hadn't been for Iran. And who is funding Iran right now? China is buying oil from Iran. Russia is getting drones and missiles from Iran. And there is an unholy alliance. We need to be clear-eyed.
I bet she pegs her
husband. The last thing we need to do is to tell Israel what to do. The only thing we should be doing is supporting them and eliminating Hamas. It is not that Israel needs America. America needs Israel.
Yes,
they are the tip of the spear when it comes to this Islamic terrorism, and we need to make sure that we have their backs in that process.
All right.
This bitch is horny for war.
Mr. Ramaswamy, any daylight between you and the candidates we just heard in this issue on what you would tell the Prime Minister?
There he is.
In terms of what I would tell the Prime Minister, no. In fact, I would go one step further. The founding vision of Israel was based on the idea that they don't want to depend on anybody else's sympathy or direction in defending themselves. So what I would tell Bibi is that Israel has the right and the responsibility to defend itself. I would tell him to smoke those terrorists on his southern border, and then I'll tell him as President of the United States, I'll be smoking the terrorists on our southern border. That's his responsibility. This is our responsibility.
Roll 'em
That's
up,
how we move
smoke 'em,
forward. But I
choke
want to be
'em down.
careful to avoid
gonna
making the
grind 'em down and
mistakes
smoke
from the
'em.
neocon establishment of the past. Corrupt politicians in both parties spent trillions, killed millions, made billions for themselves in
He's like
places like
Eminem up
Iraq
there.
and
You're
Afghanistan.
gonna smoke
fighting
him in his
wars that
Bibic
sent
hookah.
thousands of our sons and daughters, people my age, to die in wars that did not advance anyone's interests, adding $7 trillion to our national debt. And Joe Biden sold off our foreign policy. Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, got a $5 million bribe from Ukraine. That's why we're sending $200 billion back to that same country. The fact of the matter is the Republican Party is not that much better.
It is crazy
You have the
how
likes of
corrupt
Nikki
Biden
Haley, who
is
stepped
out
down
in
from her
the
time
open.
at the UN. Bankrupt or in debt was her family.
she
Then she
just
becomes
wants
a
murder,
military
look at her.
contractor. She joins the board of Boeing and otherwise, and is now a multimillionaire. So I think that that's wrong when Republicans do it or Democrats do it. That's the choice we face. Do you want a leader from a
snap him.
different generation who's going to put this country first? Or do you want Dick Cheney in 3-inch heels?
All right,
In
Mr.
which case we've got
Ramaswamy.
2 of them.
Dick Cheney.
Oh, he took a
and
shot.
3
Senator, same
shields.
question
Wow.
to you about-
That
you're
was
the
a good one.
president, you're on the phone in
Bevic
the
does a
Oval
great
Office with
job
the
of
Prime Minister, you
campaigning
tell him
for
what?
me.
That was a
But
good
number one, I would tell
roast right there of DeSantis.
Prime Minister Netanyahu, not only do you have the responsibility and the right to wipe Hamas off of the map, we will support you. We will be there.
They
with
all
you.
say
We'll
the
stand
exact
shoulder
same
to
thing
shoulder.
about
There
Israel.
will be no daylight. But
Pretty
I'll
much-
change the
Vivek, not
station
quite
a
as
little
much,
bit, though, and head
We're
back
going to turn
home
the Middle East
to
into
America.
class
I would say to
immediately the first
President
day in the White
Biden,
House.
diplomacy only is a weak strategy. Appeasement leads to war. From President Obama to President Biden, Obama sent millions to Iran. Frankly, President Biden has sent billions to Iran. That is why I've said that there's blood dripping from the hands of President Obama and President Biden. I would tell President Biden with great clarity, if you want to stop the 40+ attacks on military personnel in the Middle East, you have to strike in Iran. If you want to make a difference, you cannot just continue to have strikes in Syria on warehouses. You actually have to cut off the head of the snake, and the head of the snake is Iran and not simply their proxies. In order for us to have
World War
a powerful
III, baby.
response from America, we have to be in a position of strength. As President of the United States, my foreign policy is simple. You cannot negotiate with evil. You have to destroy it.
Okay.
All right, Senator Scott, thank you. Governor Christie, I want to get you to weigh in here.
Now we're just pure
Look,
propaganda.
Lester, these problems are so big and serious.
He's
that the
disgusting. He looks
first
like he
thing I would
smells
say
bad.
to Prime Minister Netanyahu is pretty simple. America is here, no matter what it is you need at any time, to preserve the state of Israel. Remember that Hamas's main goal is to
right,
get
tits
rid of
to me.
Israel, is to get Israel absolutely off the map. Now, there are 3 things I think I would say to him when he asked for advice. The first I would say is that it is absolutely your obligation to protect the territorial integrity of Israel. Secondly, to make sure you protect the security and the safety of your people. Every time something happens to compromise either one of those things, it creates greater unrest in the entire region.
He just has
Second,
ho-hos
you
growing
must
up
go in and
behind
make
his
sure that
dog.
Hamas can never do this again. The fact is that Israel and their intelligence community failed. They failed here, and they failed the people of the state of Israel. And so
They
we need
failed,
to work closely and better together to make sure, 1, that they're degraded, and 2, that we know everything that's going on inside the Gaza Strip when it's going on, so that something like this can't happen to kill 1,400 individuals again. And the third thing is to keep your eye on the ball. Make sure that we continue to isolate Iran, work with the reasonable nations in the Middle East, the other Arab nations who want to partner with you, and make sure that we continue to isolate Iran so that their only friends in the world are the part of the evil foursome: China, Russia, Iran, and North
evil
Korea.
foursome.
Thank you very
God, it
much.
sounds
And
like
we're
an
gonna
awful
continue
night
this
with
vein
Chris
right
Christie
now
and
with
the
a
evil
question
foursome.
from Matthew Brooks, the CEO of the Republican Jewish Coalition, a partner of the Republican National Committee in
There's
this
Jesus
debate.
back there
Here it
again.
is.
Given attacks by Iranian-backed proxy groups on U.S. military bases in Syria and Iraq, attacks that have wounded approximately 24 of our U.S. servicemen, Do you support the use of military force by the United States against Iran?
Governor Haley, would you please answer that?
Yes, I'd first like to say they're 5-inch heels, and I don't wear them unless you can run in them.
And she straps it around her waist and pegs her husband with it.
The second thing that I will say is,
She can do it
I
for
wear
Jay.
heels
And
are
I
not
don't
for
look like
fashion
Dick
statement,
Cheney.
they're for ammunition. What
God,
we
she
need to
just
be
loves
doing
killing.
for Iraq and Syria is, first of all, the idea that
She
our
can do
men
it
and
4K
women could
in
be
heels.
targeted, and that we've allowed almost
needs to prove
100
that.
hits to happen under Biden's watch is unthinkable. We need to understand this is Iran giving the green light, telling them what to do, and we shouldn't be doing the tit for tat like what Joe Biden has done.
Ooh,
we need to
tit.
go and take out their infrastructure that they are using to make those strikes with so they can never do it again. Iran responds to strength. You punch them one and you punch them hard and they will
Jesus
back
should
off.
run.
But what we don't need is Biden falling all over himself to get back in the Iran deal. Him giving $6 billion to get 5 hostages home. Him telling Netanyahu now that
So
he
she
needs
has
a pause or a
ammunition in her
ceasefire.
shoes? Is that what
we
we
don't need him going and
heard?
sitting there tiptoeing around Iran because he thinks they're going to do something. You don't respond to an enemy and a terrorist with fear. You respond with strength. When you do that, that's when the world pays attention, and that's when Iran stops.
Thank you, Governor DeSantis.
I want to hear DeSantis go.
For
For your information, I wear 7-inch heels.
Against targets in Syria, this time Iranian-linked facility. How far would you go militarily?
You know about
to hold
DeSantis
Iran
getting caught
accountable?
wearing heels on his shoes
Well,
to
first,
look
Matt,
taller,
thanks
right,
for
Mr.
your
President?
question, and I appreciate what you've done over the last month. I know it's been very
I'm
difficult
not.
for the
What
community.
was that, Brad?
And appreciate you guys rallying together. in
Mr.
difficult
DeSantis, the
times.
shot at DeSantis was
I actually
DeSantis
served in
got
Iraq
caught
back
wearing
in the
heels
day,
to make himself
and,
taller. That's
we
why
had
that joke
a
was
fight in Iraq.
at both
You
of
had
them.
Shia militias that were funded by Iran.
I
that
mean,
were
he looks
killing
like the type
hundreds
of
and
wear
hundreds of
heels.
U.S. troops. And as commander-in-chief, I am not going to put our troops in harm's way
I mean, just
unless
look at
you're
how thick
willing
his
to defend
foundation
them
is
with
from his
everything you
makeup.
have. Biden has them out there. They're sitting ducks. He's doing glancing blows. That's just inviting more attacks
Glancing blows.
from the Iranians.
That's what
I would
he
say
does to his wife every
you
couple
harm
of weeks.
a hair on the head of an American service member, and you are going to have hell to pay. We are not just going to sit there and let our service members be sitting ducks, and that's true whether it's Iran or whether
He's
it's
kinda
any
sassy
country on
there,
the
wasn't he?
world. We have to be strong, and we have to defend the people who defend us.
All right, thank you, Governor. Now our second and final question from Matthew Brooks of the Republican Jewish Coalition. Please watch.
We now have a question from Jesus.
Jewish students across the country are threatened and under attack. What do you say to Jewish students on college campuses who feel unsafe given the dramatic rise in anti-Semitism? And what do you say to university presidents and college presidents who have not met the moral clarity moment to forcefully condemn Hamas
The moral
terrorism?
clarity moment.
Mr. Ramaswamy, would you like to take that one?
Absolutely. I think the scourge of anti-Semitism across this country, including at places like my alma maters and places like Brooklyn Bridge in New York, it's sad to see, but here's
A lot
what
of
history teaches
anti-Semitism
us.
on the Brooklyn Bridge.
Anti-Semitism is a symptom of a deeper cancer in a country and a society that is lost, and we are lost. Several years ago when I wrote my first book, Woke Inc., I was talking about they were chanting death to America. Death to white people, death to Christians. Nobody was waking up back then. Now it's even bad. Now they're saying death to Israel and worse. So it is wrong, but we have to get to the root cause here. Now, I think it's really important that we do this through leadership, not censorship. Leadership means fill that void with purpose and meaning. Dilute this wokeism and anti-Semitism to irrelevance. These kids, they have no idea what the heck they're even talking about when they're siding with Hamas over Israel. They are fools. But I also want to caution here, if we go the direction of Ron DeSantis or Nikki Haley, with whom I respectfully disagree on this issue, pro-censorship, telling student groups to disband, mark my words, soon they will say if you question a vaccine and its side effects, you're a bioterrorist. Soon they will say that if you show up at a school board meeting, you're a domestic terrorist.
Yep, I've
Soon
already
if they
done
say
that.
that J6 prisoners should be released, you're an insurrectionist terrorist. So that's where this road ends. We don't quash this with censorship because that creates
Yep.
a worse underbelly. We quell it through leadership by calling it out, These university administrators have lost their way, and we need leadership at the top in the United States of America that restores our founding values and that has no place for this kind of anti-Semitic hate. That's where I stand while respecting our Constitution.
I want him to challenge Chris Christie to a skin, take your shirt off debate like he did in that one video. He was playing tennis.
Let me just say to every
Where's the
single
girlfriend,
university
Tim
president
Scott?
in America, federal funding is a privilege, not a right. Number one.
Thank you, Principal.
Number two, to every student who've come to our country on a visa to a college campus, your visa is a privilege, not a right. Number three.
Yes, sir.
Any campus that allows for anti-Semitism and hate, to allow students to encourage terrorism, mass murder, and genocide, you should lose your federal funding today, period. To all the students on visas who are encouraging Jewish genocide, I would deport you from those campuses. We have to stand strong
where?
with our
Outside
Jewish
the campus,
Americans.
or?
At the end of the day, we should not have our Jewish students in a library being told to hide. On our streets in New York, a Jewish citizen has the right to walk on the streets of America.
Of course,
with
everybody
no fear.
does.
They have the right to go to college campuses, go to class, and not fear. We will restore that. I started working on anti-Semitism on college campuses in 2017.
What does that
Because
mean?
even
You started
then,
working
there was
on
a
it.
rise of anti-Semitism on college campuses.
I've been working
We
on that
must
problem.
Force the people off those campuses, and
Senator
frankly,
Scott, thank you. Let me
out of our country.
Let me turn to the governor.
How about we
DeSantis.
define what
do you think about he just
anti-Semitism
said?
is concretely,
I
so
was the
everything
first
doesn't become
presidential candidate to
anti-Semitism?
say, if you are here on a student visa as a foreign national, you're making common cause with Hamas, I'm canceling your visa and I'm sending you home. No
I'm
questions
slitting
asked.
your throat.
Second,
Day one.
I have friends here in Florida who their kids do not feel safe even going to university campus at all outside of the state of Florida. You have Jewish students fleeing for their lives at Cooper Union. Joe Biden should have the Department of Justice on these college campuses and holding the universities accountable for civil rights violations. When you should not have money.
I wonder
going
if
to
those
these
same
places.
kids that
I
are
already
afraid to
acted in
leave Florida watch
We had a group
Rated R
Students for
movies.
Justice of Palestine. They said they are common cause with Hamas. They said, we're not just in solidarity, this is what we are. We deactivated them. We're not going to use state tax dollars to fund.
Does that mean he
jihad.
killed them?
No way. And what is Biden doing? Not only is he not helping the Jewish students who are being persecuted, he is launching an initiative to combat so-called Islamophobia. No, it's the anti-Semitism that's spiraling out of control. That is what we have to confront.
So now
And as
there is no
president, I can tell you
Islamophobia
this,
anymore.
we
It's
are
only
not gonna
anti-Semitism.
stand for this on college campuses
This
any
is
longer.
so
All
biased.
right, Governor, thank you. Let me turn to Governor.
They're all
Governor
sucking that
Christie,
Israel
and
dick.
Considering what he just said, you led a state with a sizable Muslim population. Last month, as you know, a 6-year-old Palestinian-American boy was killed in Illinois by his landlord. His mother was also stabbed more than a dozen times in what has been charged as a hate crime. What do you say to Muslim Americans who are also feeling afraid for their safety?
Ron's going
right
to
now?
threaten to eat them.
Lester, I'm the only one on the stage who's actually had experience in dealing with this. I was appointed by President Bush to be the U.S. Attorney in New
eaten
Jersey on
dozens
September
of
10th, 2001.
Islam.
And when I took over that job after the September 11th attacks,
Oh, yeah,
I
you're
had
really
to
there
deal
for us.
with a situation in our state that was explosive. We're the most ethnically diverse state in this country. And so first, we heard
His
credible
approval rating
reports
was like 10%
about
in New
Jewish
Jersey.
students and synagogues being threatened in our state in the aftermath of 9/11. We made sure that we sent federal agents to those synagogues and we protected them, and the same thing should be being done now. At the very same time, I personally went from mosque to mosque in New Jersey and met with the leaders of those mosques and with the members
are
of the
AC
mosques.
Slaters
And I
and
said
Zach
to them,
Morris's
law
out there.
enforcement is on your side to protect you regardless of your religion if you are going to comply with the law. And we developed fabulous relationships with Muslim Americans all across the state of New Jersey, and we stopped any hate crimes that were going on either against Jewish Americans in New Jersey,
They stopped
or
all
Muslim
of them.
Americans in New Jersey. It takes leadership, Lester, to know how to do this. You must work with both sides. Both sides need to know it, but let us never have a false moral equivalence between Hamas and Hezbollah and the Jewish people. The Jewish people stand for right and justice, and Hamas and Hezbollah stand for death.
Governor Christie, thank you. Ambassador Haley.
I bet the
what do you
compromising
say to
material they have on
Americans who are
Chris Christie
simply
is
afraid
utterly
right now
disgusting.
in this current environment that we're talking about?
I think, you look at the country, and the country is all out of sorts. I think, look at what these kids are dealing
Mr.
with
President,
on college
she
campuses.
looks
What
like
makes me so
the
angry
worst
is
bitch.
Not only do you have the kids
Her
barricaded
husband must
in
be
the library,
miserable.
They've said they were going to
The
shoot
Ice
up
Queen,
the
Nikki
kosher
Haley.
dining
I mean,
she's
hall.
wearing
You've got
that
kids' dorm rooms who are being
Ice
set
Queen
on fire
outfit.
because they have
Every
something
debate she
related
has,
to
look at her
Israel on
last
their
one, it
doors.
was like blue
No
and icy
person
looking
should
too.
ever feel in danger like this.
She
And this
thinks
is
she's
what I
in
would say
an
about
episode
our
of that
college presidents,
Frozen
is
movie
if
from
the KKK were doing this,
Pixar, whoever
every
developed
college
those
president
things.
Yeah.
would be up in arms. This is no different. You should treat it
KKK.
exactly the
You put a
same.
Klan hood on her and she's got a
Anti-Semitism is
uniform.
just as awful as racism, and we've got to make sure they're protected. And for everybody that's protesting on these college campuses in favor of Hamas, let me remind you something. Hamas said death to Israel and death to America. They hate and would kill you too. And the idea that they're talking about genocide for the Jewish people, that's not
Yeah.
the values of America. That's not us. We're better than that. We don't need to celebrate terrorists. We don't need to celebrate genocide. We don't need to celebrate violence towards anybody. We need to go back and soul search in our
she was a
country
mean
and
girl.
remember what we are
Certain.
about. And we are about taking care of people.
We don't need to celebrate violence. We just need to nuke China.
Terrorist activity says they want to destroy them.
Ambassador, thank you. Kristen.
Great job.
Lester, thank you. This
Ice
is another
Queen.
question for the entire field.
Very
so we'll all
diverse.
get a chance
Has
to respond.
Cooper
Senator
said
Scott,
anything?
I'd like to start with you. The United States has given Ukraine financial and military support since the war began more than 600 days ago. President Zelensky told me on Sunday, if Russia isn't stopped now,
the top of
quote,
the stool.
the price will be higher for the United States, and Americans would be forced to, quote, send your sons and daughters to defend NATO countries. Senator Scott, where do you stand on more
Zelensky's
funding for Ukraine?
I certainly have been very
caricature.
supportive of Ukraine. I believe that ultimately we should make sure that the President of the United States states what is America's
he's just
national
playing the
vital
character he
interest
played on
in
television.
Ukraine. It is
I know,
actually
literally.
in degrading the Russian military. We've been very effective using our resources and our weaponry and the incredibly high price
And I promise I have a
of
girlfriend.
Ukrainian blood to achieve
We
that
need to
objective.
produce that
Every
girlfriend on
day
stage.
We get closer to the degradation of the Russian military, and that's good news. But the American people are frustrated that they do not have a president who reminds us and tells us, where's the accountability? Where are those dollars? How are those dollars being spent? We need
We don't-
those
they're being
answers
given
for us
to
to
the
continue to
Azov
see
Battalion,
the
some of
support for Ukraine. And at the same time, I would say that a package that's been offered by the president for Ukraine.
He needs to start
and
saying, I was talking to
Israel,
my girlfriend about this,
that's
so
the
people
wrong
can
approach.
start to really believe this
We
story.
need to focus specifically on providing Israel with the $14 billion that they need so that we show the world that we are 100% undeniably standing shoulder to shoulder with Israel. And then as we turn away from that direct support for Israel, we should go to our southern border and close our southern border with the resources necessary. I believe that we have sleeper terrorist cells in America. Thousands of people have come from Yemen, Iran, Syria, and Iraq. If we are going to deal with the national security emergency at our border, we have to do it now.
Senator Scott, thank you. But just to be very clear, if you were president, if you were in the
Do you
Oval
have a
Office
girlfriend?
today, would you sign off on more military funding for Ukraine, or would you discontinue it?
Bottom line is we have to first have the level of accountability that allows the American people to understand where the resources have gone. Number one. Number two, after we have that responsibility taken care of and accountability, then we have an opportunity to look at the overall strategy that helps us degrade the Russian military while we use our resources and frankly, keeping our NATO partners safe from the Russian military is absolutely essential. As you understand, Article 5 would require to support and to defend NATO, our troops on the ground. The fastest way for us to eliminate that possibility is for us to destroy to the extent possible the Russian military. By doing so, we actually achieve the objective of keeping our military home. And that's good news.
Thank you, Senator Scott. Mr. Ramaswamy, are you persuaded by President Zelensky's urgent new plea? Where do you stand?
No.
It looks kind of
I'm
like a
absolutely
walrus.
unpersuaded. And I'm actually
Yeah.
enjoying watching the
Oh,
Ukraine
yeah,
boss
yeah.
quietly, delicately tiptoe back from their position as this thing has unwound into a disaster. The first half of this race, I was the only person standing for it. Now they're actually quietly coming around to being more cautious as they should. Level with the American people here. Ukraine is not a paragon of democracy. This
No,
is a
it's
country
not.
that has banned 11 opposition parties. It has consolidated all media into one state TV media arm. That's not democratic.
very true.
It has threatened not to hold elections this year unless the U.S. forks over more money. That is not democratic. It has celebrated a Nazi in its ranks, the comedian in cargo pants. a man
that
called
was
Zelensky,
hilarious.
doing it in their own ranks. That is not democratic. More facts for you that you won't hear from the mainstream in either
Standing
party or the
ovation for the
mainstream media.
Nazi.
The regions of Ukraine that are occupied by Russia right now, in the Donbass, Luhansk, Donetsk, these are Russian-speaking regions that have not even been part of Ukraine since 2014, that other people probably couldn't name those provinces for you. Those are the hard facts. And so to frame this as some kind of battle between good versus evil, don't buy it. And I'd like the likes of the sharpest of the war hawks on Ukraine, Nikki Haley, to have some accountability and answer. Do you want to use U.S. taxpayer money to fund the banning of Christians? That is actually what's happening. They're using the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. They have banned them. The Ukrainian parliament just did this last week, supported by our dollars. And I think you owe it to the American people, Nikki, to at least this one
Mr.
time at least
Ramaswamy,
condemn.
thank you. That's time.
At least to
Mr.
condemn
Ramaswamy,
their
thank
banning
you.
of Christians.
Mr. Ramaswamy,
Look at her. She doesn't
thank
care.
you.
She'll kill
Mr.
them.
Ramaswamy, thank
And
you.
she won't
We
think
asked the
twice about it.
questions. Ambassador Haley,
Well, she deserves to
what is your take?
She's a
on
little.
more
Her eyes are a
funding for Ukraine?
little bright.
I am telling you, Putin and President Xi are salivating at the thought that someone like that could become president. They would love to see that.
Someone like that. What a
So this is what I
racist.
will tell you.
Wow.
China's
Wow, that's worse than me saying the black people love me.
Thank you. The first thing I'll tell you is we all remember what that thug did when he invaded Ukraine.
Oh, good one,
we
thug.
all know that 500,000 people have died because of Putin.
How do you-
And
I mean, how
here
does
is
it feel when you just suck the
freedom-loving,
dick of every talking
pro-American
point
country that is
that the
fighting
mainstream
for
produces,
its survival
like
and its
she does?
democracy. No, I don't think we should give them cash. I think we should give them the equipment and the ammunition to win. And I'll tell you, if Biden had done it when they first asked for it, this war would be over. But let's also remember this. When you left Afghanistan in shambles and left them with a ton of weapons and money, it's not that we left, it's how we left. When you look at Ukraine,
I bet her
don't
suit
think
is
for a
made out of an
second, now
albino's
everybody wants to
skin.
move away from Ukraine. They'll want to move away from Israel a year from now. America can never be so arrogant to think we don't need friends. After 9/11, we needed a lot of friends. Now is the time to get partnerships. This unholy alliance
let's talk
between
about 9/11. What
Russia,
happened
Ukraine,
there?
and China is real. There is a reason the
Is real.
Taiwanese want us to support the Ukrainians. It's because they know that China is coming after them next. There is a reason Ukrainians want us to support Israelis, because they know that if Iran wins, Russia wins.
Ambassador.
We have to see the combination of the
Christy looks
Ambassador,
hungry
thank
as
you.
hell.
Governor Christie, what is your take? And how long should Americans
Christie's
be
hungry
expected
like the
to
wolf.
help fund the war in Ukraine?
Kirsten, let's remember the last time that we turned our back on a shooting war in Europe. It bought us just a couple of years. And then
Yes, sir,
500,000
Tim.
Americans
Haley
were
does look
killed
like she
in
did a little
Europe to
cocaine
defeat
before
Hitler.
the debate.
This is not a choice. This is the price we pay for being the leaders of the free world. And the fact is, this
The meatball
alliance
sub is a choice.
is not just with Russia and China. Governor Haley knows this. Iran is in the middle of this as well, and so is North Korea. And they are all working to support Russia right now. And the reason they're doing it is because dictators work together. People who believe in
right,
democracy
retard.
work together. We must stand with all of those
Albino
that are
hate
standing
on
up for
her.
democracy and freedom in this world. And by the way, let's remind everybody of this. In 1992, this country made a promise to Ukraine. We said if you return nuclear missiles that were part of the old Soviet Union to Russia and they invade you, we will protect you. An American promise that's 31 years old is no
Some of
different than an
them
American promise
don't
that's
some
made
of them
tonight
want
on
to
this
be
stage. We need
Russian.
to stand by it.
Parts
And
of
those of
Ukraine.
us who forget history are doomed to repeat it. And
I'd like to respond.
Don't worry, Ukraine. You guys can be as corrupt as you want to be, and we'll pay for it.
I had a reaction to a Papa John's non-GMO pizza,
I'd like to
Governor
respond.
and then next week I ate it again. You will repeat history if you don't remember it.
On this idea, are you concerned that this could become a wider war if Putin is not stopped now?
Well, any suggestion by Zelensky or anyone else that we're going to eventually have U.S. troops there, I can tell the American people when I'm president that will not happen. We are not going to send your sons and daughters to Ukraine. I am going to send troops to our
We're
southern
gonna send all the
border.
trans
If you look at
children,
the
is what
threats
we're
that
gonna
we
do.
face. Terrorists have come in through our southern border. I'm going to shut it down. I'm going to have the military, and I'm going to deport the people who've come, particularly under Biden, who've come from the Middle East, come from all these places. Now, Biden wants $105 billion. 60, most of that's Ukraine, including some of it going to pay pensions for bureaucrats and salaries.
You could get $105 billion
totally
for
ridiculous
for
use
Mar-a-Lago,
of American
Mr. President.
tax dollars. He says he has money for border to try
Christie
to do. The media repeat
leaning
that. When
over
you
with
look
his
at
hip
it,
like he's
what
trying to
most of
show
the
his
money
ass off. You see that?
Is money to process more illegal aliens into this country. How is that solving the problem? That's making the problem worse. And what does he do for the Indo-Pacific? A pittance.
Chris Christie
That
brings
is the
all the
top
boys
threat
to the
that we
yard.
face.
Damn right.
We need to
He's
bring
better
this
than
war to
yours.
an end. We need the Europeans to step up and do their fair share. And we need to get serious about
like
the
you're
top threat
lying
that this
there,
country
Mr.
faces,
President.
which is the Chinese Communist Party.
Jaina.
If I may
Thank you,
respond
Governor.
to the Ukraine
Q.
question.
In fact, we are going to go from the hot wars in
Hot
Ukraine
war.
and Gaza and Israel
Is-
to what many people are
Is
calling the
Anderson
new Cold
Cooper? Oh,
War
that's not
with
Anderson
China.
Cooper.
And I remind
That's
the audience that it's important
like an
for
Anderson
our
Cooper
visitors at home to be able
taller
to hear you, and
lookalike.
especially for the people in Beijing.
It's
to hear
this
you.
clown.
Many
Also kinda
Republicans
gay, I
believe
think.
that the Chinese Communist Party and General Secretary Xi is
Anderson
an
Cooper.
existential threat to the United
Dana
States. The flashpoint
says
is
that
Taiwan.
she
For
would
decades
rather
and decades, the
eat
American
glass
military, but primarily the
than
United States
watch this
Navy,
debate
has
without
deterred
Binkley
an
and fake
attack
Trump's
from
commentary,
China
Mr.
to the
President.
island
Fake
state of
Trump.
Taiwan. But
Well,
Ronald
you know,
Reagan's
you have
Navy of
to act
600
like
ships
you're
is
somewhere
gone.
else. It's
Now, the question to you
all
is,
part of the
and I'll start
rouge.
with you, Ambassador Haley,
Rouge.
because you were in President Trump's
Rouge.
cabinet. His goal was a 355-ship Navy. That's what he pushed for. He got to 300. It's now at 291. Is that big enough to deter
291.
and, if necessary, defeat
This guy has a
the
little
invasion of
jizz
Taiwan?
stuck in his throat, I think.
China has the largest naval fleet
Old
in the world.
jizz
They
throat
have
commentator.
350 ships. They'll have 400 ships in 2 years. We won't even have
400
350
ships
ships
in
in
2
2 decades.
years.
China has built up their military.
Sir Tim
It's
says
not
that her
just land, air, and sea.
outfit
They're
is
doing
made out of
cyber,
the
they're doing
aftermath
artificial
of
intelligence, they're
bukkake.
doing space. America needs to modernize our military. We
400
need to do everything we can. The
ships
first
and
thing is
what
you go
did
and make
she
sure you have
say?
the backs
400
of Ukraine. That's why the
shits.
Taiwanese want us to
400
support Ukraine,
ships in
because
2
they know that
years.
sends the biggest message
That's
to
a lot.
China.
I
The
guess.
second
I don't
thing
know.
is
She
we
keeps
go
track.
to China and we start being
Christie's
tough
at
on
like
them.
three-
No more
three- 400,000.
sales of our American soil
Pounds.
to China, and let's take back what they've already stolen.
Did
Then
she
you go and
just
you
say
talk
her
to the
vagina?
universities. No more having millions
Yeah,
of dollars
she
go to
said
our
that she's gonna
universities.
kill
Then we will go and end all
CCP with her
formal
vagina.
trade relations
Pussy
with China
power.
until they stop murdering Americans
With
for
my
fentanyl, something
vagina?
Ron is yet to say that he's going to do.
I would like to see
And
her
then
just
we modernize our military.
rise
When we
up,
strengthen our military,
land on
when
Chris
we
Christie's head and
modernize it
swallow
with
his
the
little
focus
head.
of cyber,
Yeah,
artificial
rise up
intelligence,
like
and
she's a
space, when we
Falcons
make sure that
fan.
we
Yeah,
have
or a
the
demon,
backs
yeah.
of our friends, whether it's in Israel, whether it's in Ukraine, and we should be arming Taiwan. Make sure they have the equipment they need.
There
Make sure
should
they
just
have
be
the
a
training they
giant
need now. There is
blue
nothing
and
China
white
fears
dildo
more
stuck to the
than
wall,
knowing that America
right
will
to the
have
right or
Taiwan's
left of the
back.
candidates.
Let's make
And
sure
when
that
they
we show
walk
it
on
by
and off
making
stage,
sure
they should
they
all
have
have
the
to just go over and
equipment
just
they need.
Governor
suck on it
DeSantis,
a little
my
bit
question is specifically
before
about
they
the
enter
Navy.
and leave the stage.
It's at 291. It's going to go down perhaps as low as
Sorry, I'm
280.
a
Is
little
it
bit of
enough?
cum
And
throat.
what would you build if you were going to build more?
Not enough. We have to have the ability to back up a strategy of denial of President Xi's ambitions. And
President Xi?
if China is able to be the world's leading superpower, that will affect
He
you
does
and
sound
your
like a
family
wiener,
in ways that
Sir
are going to be
Tim.
very bad. They will export authoritarianism all around the
sounds
world
like
as
a
the cost of
Poindexter.
doing business. They will impose things like social credit scores and internet monitoring. So this
Yeah,
is,
like I said
to
last
this
time, he's
generation,
got
what the
some Kermit
Soviet
the
Union
Frog in
was to the
his
post-World
throat.
War II generation.
Yeah.
I've already released a plan. We're going to
That's
get
where
to
we're
355 ships at the
generation.
end of the first term.
Yeah, he just doesn't have-
385
he's
ships
gotta
at the end
develop
of the
that
second
charisma.
term, but we're
He's
going to have
gotta-
a path to 600 ships over the next 20 years. I think the future of freedom is going to be determined in the Indo-Pacific. We have a strategy not just military, but decoupling from the economy and fighting them here at home with their cultural. You know, Ambassador Haley said somehow I wasn't doing. She welcomed them into South
I
Carolina.
have 15-inch heels.
Military base, wrote the Chinese ambassador a love letter saying what a great friend they were. That was like their #1 way to do economic development.
that outfit,
in Florida,
that bukkake outfit
I
from
banned
China.
China from buying land in this state, and we kicked out.
He did a lot of good stuff in Florida.
We kicked the Confucius Institutes out of our
He's a good
universities.
governor,
We've
not a
recognized
great
the threat,
president,
and
not
we've
like
acted
me.
swiftly and decisively.
Senator Scott, you've been in the Congress since 2011. Defense spending has fallen.
He'd be a good,
over
like,
an entire period of time.
intern for
Where
you,
are
I
we
think,
going
Mr.
to
President.
get the money, and what would you build, and what
That
kind of
money.
ships to deter China from attacking
Well, my
Taiwan?
girlfriend and I were
Two major
discussing this
problems
subject
with
the other
question.
day.
Number one, we do not have currently a defense industrial bank to allow us to have the kind of production that we need
defense
in order to
industrial
keep
bank?
America
Is
safe.
that what he just said?
Frankly, if we are not prepared to fight and engage,
This
in
is the bank of
three
the military
continents
industrial
at the
complex.
same
Welcome.
time, think about where we are today. In the Middle
Would you
East,
like to
we're
take
in
out
the
a
midst
loan
of trying to back
for
our
some proxy
strongest
wars?
ally. In Eastern
For every,
Europe,
if you want to sign up for a new credit card, we will give you a
help degrade the Russian
AK-47.
military. The Indo-Pacific, we have real challenges. The long-term threat is China. Immediate threat is our southern border. In order for us to have the military to fight 3 different continents
China.
at the exact same time, we are going to have to invest heavily
China.
in the military, but we're also going to have to invest heavily in an industrial base so that we can hit our objectives from a
China.
military perspective. Not
they
only
don't
with
say
our
it right, do
ships,
they?
but also with our planes. We are so
Look, DeSantis is like,
as a
sounds
military
interesting.
that in order for us
They're
to
so much more
recalibrate,
boring
we're
than
gonna
I
have
am.
to
They-
invest. One of the things
they're
I
all
do in my
saying the
Made
same
in America
stuff.
strategy
That's
is
the
to create
problem.
more than 4 million new
All of
jobs
them are so
by
boring.
having high-tech
Except
manufacturing
Vivek.
come back to
He's a little
America,
entertaining.
decoupling from China, so that we focus our attention on creating that industrial
Corn Pop
revolution that will
Island.
be necessary for us to achieve the goal.
I think
of
if
having
you
a
become president,
military
you should
that is
rename
ready to be
Epstein Island to
lethal
Corn
and
Pop
come home
Island.
safe.
Senator,
They
Mr.
all
President,
have the
I'm looking for
exact same
specifics.
policy
What would you
position for the
build? Where
international
would you build
stuff.
it?
All
When
of
would
them.
they be in the
Vivek,
water? How
not
big would the fleet get?
all the way.
First answer is end the toxic divest to invest program. For people who don't know about
Look
that,
at the- look
we're
at the
decommissioning
articulator
ships in the South
himself.
China Sea. The foundation of war is economics. Rebuild our defense industrial base at home. But here's the dirty little secret.
Dirty,
Our actual
dirty.
defense industrial base
Here's the
depends
dirty
on
little
China
secret.
for the supply chain, for the F-35 jets, for the ships
This is
that
a dirty
we're
little
building.
secret.
Think
I'm
about
not
this.
wearing any underwear.
Why are we stockpiling that if it isn't to actually be strong against our enemy, China? We depend on them for that, just like we depend on them for pharmaceuticals, just like we depend on them for semiconductors.
What if he's this
So here's why we can't get
specific
tough with
and
China.
intense
It's
in
because
every
we depend
conversation
on
he
them
has?
for
When I
our
went for
modern
breakfast
way of
today,
life, and we
is
have
an
to
English
declare
muffin.
economic independence from our enemy. That's the
will use
Declaration
the
of
white
Independence that
nationalist
Thomas
symbol.
Jefferson, at the age of 33, would have signed. And today, if you were
Jesus
alive,
was
that's the
33.
Declaration of Independence that I will sign as the next president. I do have to
President.
recognize that Ron
As the
DeSantis
next
was
president.
correct about acknowledging Nikki Haley's tough talk when she was ambassador
Tough
to
talk,
the UN,
Haley.
calling China our great friend, bringing the CCP to South Carolina. What he left out, though, Ron, and be honest about it, there was a
Bringing the
lobbying-based exemption in that
CCP
bill
to
that allowed
South
Chinese
Carolina.
nationals to buy land within a 20-mile radius of a military base lobbied for by one of your donors. So I think we have to call a
licking his
spade a
lips.
spade.
He's like,
we need politicians who are independent of the forces that increase our dependence on
fucking
China.
conductor up there.
My message to Xi Jinping is this. You are done buying land in this country. You will not donate to universities in this country. U.S. businesses won't expand into the Chinese market.
I will
until
defeat
play
you
by
in
the same
tennis
rules
with my
around the
shirt
world.
off.
You're kicked out of the WTO, and you actually have to have accountability.
I'm
for
trying
the
to think who
COVID-19
Vivek
pandemic
reminds me of
financially,
when he
which unleashed
speaks.
hell on the world.
I call him
We
the
have to hold them
enunciator.
accountable.
The great Vivek, the enunciator, Ramaswamy.
I think that we need to increase our naval capacity by at least 20%
At
over the
least
course of the next
20%.
several years.
20%.
I think we have to, at minimum, be able
He's
to
the
meet
most
our
annoying
AUKUS
guy
agreement
in
standards.
every law school
Right now, we are
class.
at risk
He's
of
the
not even being
micro
able to
machine
meet our
man.
AUKUS
Go look
standards
up those
with
commercials.
Australia and the UK.
All right.
So what we need to do is have a plan that reverses the trajectory of the divest to invest program.
I'd like to
He'd be a good
20% over the next
car
3 years.
salesman commercial guy for
You know,
sure.
my first observation
Vivek
is that nobody
Ramaswamy.
answers
Vivek's used cars and sales.
My second observation is these three in the middle think they're the enemy. I know China.
Oh,
is
he
I
made a
the
bad
just
joke.
ate
and that's
the
what we
enemy.
focus on. So let's be really clear. The nuclear submarines in this United States
I will
Navy
eat
is the
them.
greatest deterrent to Chinese aggression, and that is the first place
they
I
look
would
delicious.
go to increase American naval power. Our nuclear
You know, he doesn't
submarines are
give a
able
shit
to
about
move
what Jared from
stealthily,
Subway did.
quietly,
He just
and
cares about them
effectively.
sandwiches.
And if we are going to deter China from invading Taiwan, the only way we're going to do it is to make sure that they don't
Is
know
to butter them up,
whether how
put
many nuclear
ketchup on them, and
submarines from the
eat
United
them.
States of America are in the South China Sea and in that area and ready to strike on them if they decide to move on Taiwan. And so we, as our first priority, need to go directly
looks like
to
someone
our
who
nuclear
beats his wife.
program, Hugh, and we need to increase it drastically. That would be priority number one. Ships
For a
would
short
come
period
next,
of time,
but to me, the ships are
out of
secondary
breath
choice
quickly.
here. The submarines are the single most important thing.
Just
that
one
we
of
can be
these
deterring,
debates
that
is
we
a
can be using to
workout
deter
for him.
China. But the other thing we
Oh,
could
you
do
know
to deter China
the
is to let
sweat
them know
stains
that the
underneath
blood
that
money they're
jacket.
spending for Russia in
I mean, you
Ukraine
could
right now
bring
will not be
water to
effective,
Africa
that
if
we
you took
send
all the
Putin
nasty
home with
salt
his
out of
tail
those.
between
Hey,
his
don't be a
legs, and make
racist.
them understand that the
That's
same
true,
fate
right.
waits for
Can't
them,
help them.
if they decide to move towards Taiwan with a more aggressive nuclear
Racist like Mr.
sub-program. We'll
Beast.
be able to make that threat real.
Thank you, Governor. We're going
Chris
to take a
Christie is
brief
strictly
pause now. We'll
there
be back
to
the
try and
Republican
like attack
presidential
Trump. Like
primary
that's the only
debate.
he had a 0% like vote. Like no, he had 0% when this all started, and it's all just yet he's on every debate stage. So that was a long first segment, and you're right, Mr. President. It was rather mundane outside of Vivek. It was a bunch of sameness, and I got a few comments, and then I want to hear what you think, Mr. President. First of all, Michael Bloomberg, who ran for president briefly last time, I don't know why he's not running, because clearly, if you don't vote for Michael Bloomberg, who's Jewish, you're anti-Semitic. This is a perfect time for a Jewish person to become president because you could run on that message. The Hamas leaders, I've said this on my shows a number of times, there are three of their leaders are combined worth $12 billion, like $4 billion roughly each. And they are living in the lap of luxury in beautiful hotels and villas in Qatar, right down the street from an American military outfit and from a bunch of other world leaders. And there's stories on the internet about how their love of ping pong is probably a golden ping pong table, and they sleep on beds that are probably $100,000 mattresses, and they probably eat $50,000 caviar and have sex with $100,000 hookers on a nightly basis. Bibi's not going after them. He's cool with them, probably because Bibi Netanyahu is also currently living in the lap of luxury. He's not in the danger zone. He went off and he took his wife and he took his personal chef, and they are staying in a American billionaire's home that has a deep nuclear bunker, was just outfitted just right before all of this with like the most sophisticated, highest levels of security in the world. This is located in Jerusalem, and this is a multi-million-dollar mansion, and the people in Israel are pissed off at him for hiding away and sending people into war when he is safe and not in danger, and neither are the Hamas people. They both seem to be like, I'll leave you alone, you leave me alone, and then we'll just kill all the little pawns we're moving around on a chessboard. I'll take all this bullshit they say seriously when Bibi Netanyahu goes after the Hamas leaders in Qatar. But it's not going to happen. Mr. President, your thoughts in the first segment. Who do you think won? Who do you think lost?
I mean, if we're talking about going up against me, they all lost.
Of course they all lost. I
I've
mean, nobody
got
stood
a
up.
45-point lead on radar. They're sanctimonious.
Absolutely.
You know, I find it funny that the one thing the Democrats and the Republicans can agree on is war.
Yeah, yep, that is the one thing. And that third-party candidates must not exist. They will team up to get rid of them.
You know, I like that. I like that RFK Jr. I do like him.
You like
You know,
his,
the
you think his wife is
CIA
hot?
killed his daddy and his uncle.
They did.
Yeah, I saw it. I've D-classed.
You witnessed. You saw the actual murder.
Well, I've seen the evidence from it. I've read the Warren Commission. I've read all the top secret documents.
Yeah. Well, from that first segment there, and I'd like to hear what you think. Tippy Toes DeSantis is one of my nicknames for Ron, which is actually with the background.
Brad. I love your nicknames.
Brainstorming some new nicknames for you, Mr. President. Also, so here's what I like for Tim Scott, who promises us he has a girlfriend that nobody's ever seen. I like for Tim Scott, Tim, the heterosexual Scott. He should wear a shirt that says heterosexual.
I mean, do you think he's covering something up? Is that what you're alluding to, Brett?
Well, a lot of people think he might be gay, and there was an interview where he promised everybody he had a girlfriend, but it was really awkward, and no, he hasn't produced that girlfriend yet, but he said one day we might see her. I think we need to see her up on stage. Or I think it'd be great, though. Wouldn't it be great if you had a gay black vice president?
A gay black Republican vice president. Yes. I couldn't think anything better.
Brilliant. I found that ad. We'll watch that after this break here, after the next break. The Micro Machine. I can see what you're saying with Vivek playing this character. That's pretty funny. But let's get the debate.
Yeah, he was also the teacher at a great show, Saved by the Bell. The reboot wasn't so great.
Oh, my gosh. He was in Saved by the Bell, wasn't he?
That's right. He was one of the teachers. But the reboot, Brad, the reboot was awful. I didn't like it one bit. It was way too woke.
And they had the Kelly Kapowski cheerleader. They made a trans person. That's the problem with that.
Trans cheerleader.
Yeah, and that's not good for anybody. So Kelly Kapowski, though, Mr. President, hubba hubba. Talk about a childhood crush.
That Kelly Kapowski. I mean, Jesse Spano, Lisa Turtle, all of them, just very, very classy, foxy girls.
Jessie Spano is the girl you do cocaine with, hook up with once, and regret it the rest of your life because she never stops calling. I think.
Well, she wouldn't have done it, but maybe her character from Showgirls would have.
Yeah. Oh, yes. I'm getting it mistaken. Yes, exactly. Let's get back into the debate here. See what they're.
This type of poison.
Poison.
Put out throughout the United States, even putting aside the spying, which we know is going on, and the theft of American personal data and information.
Uh-oh.
So in my first week as president,
we
would ban TikTok. They want to go ahead and sell it.
What?
Let them go
It's
ahead
gonna take
and
them
sell
a week?
it. But I'll tell you another reason we would do it. Facebook's not in China.
I'm going to ban vegetables in my second week.
They're not permitting
and then I'm going to ban fiber
to the Chinese people.
Exercising will become a crime.
Yet we just open the door and let them do what they're doing. TikTok.
The only exercise that will be allowed are giant hamster wheels that you keep at your house.
Governor. I want to go to Governor DeSantis. Would you ban or force the sale of TikTok, regardless of whether or not China allowed America?
Why are they talking about TikTok?
Yes, I think that China
I wish
is
they
the
had
top
clips
threat
of,
we
like,
face. They've been very effective
Chris Christie's
at
TikTok
infiltrating different
page
parts of our
we could show
society. So my policy on China and the Chinese Communist Party is very simple.
Yeah.
We win, they lose.
Oh,
and in
good
order to do
policy.
that, it's not
that's
just
good.
military,
That's good,
That's
it's
very good
economic,
strategy.
and it's cultural. And as the dad of a 6'5" and a 3-year-old, I'm concerned about the
A
data.
6'5", 3-year-old?
A 6'5",
from our
3-year-old.
young
He's the father of a
people and
6'5",
what they're
3-year-old.
doing
You know,
to
that
the
sounds like a
minds
scorpion.
of our young people.
Wow,
These
yeah,
kids get
it's
these
a
devices
scorpion.
and they have a mind of their own. And I know a lot of parents are looking. It's hard to even keep it out. China's obviously the most extreme, but this is
He's just
happening
got
with
a
other things.
6'5", 3-year-old
So we
that's
are
a
going to do
jacked
that,
baby.
and we are going to make
He
sure to
might not
protect
be
the
the
American
father of that
people. It's a
child.
full spectrum approach to be able to fend China off. Yes,
Barron
military
Trump might be.
deterrence. Yes, economic
You think that he might be an
decoupling, but also
animatronic?
their role in our culture.
He
If we
could
don't
play
if
one
we
for sure.
ignore that, we're not going to be able to win the fight.
Vivek's just like,
Ambassador Haley,
looks like he woke up, took his toga off, put a suit on, walked out of the frat house, and came down
No,
to the
I'm
debate.
going
Yeah,
to speak to the
Vivek
fact
is,
that you people
high
hit
on
me and you
pure
didn't let me
adrenaline.
respond. So let's first talk about the fact that they want to talk about the Chinese land from 10 years ago. Yes, I brought a fiberglass company 10 years ago to South Carolina. But Ron, you are the chair of your Economic Development Agency that as of last week said Florida is the ideal place.
She looks like
for
she
Chinese
schedules
businesses.
sex with her husband.
Not only that, you have a company
Months in
that
advance.
is manufacturer of Chinese military planes. You have it.
And he
They are
dreads it.
expanding 2 training sites at 2 of your airports now, one which is 12 miles away from a naval base.
I wish
then
Ron
you have
would just
another
snap and
company
just,
that's
like,
expanding, and they were
punch
just
it.
invaded
Say
by
a
the Department of
naval's
Homeland
base?
Security. So
yes, they're
mine
talking
was
about
10
belly
years
buttons.
ago.
You gave
Yours
them
was
stuff.
6
I
months
didn't give
ago.
them anything.
What's your story?
Look at
get
his
that belly
hands.
button
Look how he has his
up
hands
there
dressed.
on the water.
No, he-
Enterprise Florida, we abolished
He's
it.
a
and of
little
course, we
effeminate.
banned
He
China from
scrubbed
buying
the
land.
website
Not
last
exactly
week.
a
Go
great
check.
recruiting
Couple
tool for
bitches in
running
heels
from
fighting.
purchasing
You
land
scrubbed
at
the
all. So
website
we've stood
last
up and
week.
we've
Thank you,
done the
Ambassador
right thing
Haley.
in Florida.
Mr.
I'll scrub your
Ramaswamy,
ass right now, Haley.
We've talked about this.
The
You
ice
campaign on TikTok. How do you get TikTok banned if you use it?
Well, I
this
want
guy
to laugh at
sounds
why Nikki
really
Haley didn't answer your question, which is about looking at
contagious to
families
me.
in
Doesn't
the
he sound
eye.
contagious?
In the last debate, she made fun of me for actually joining TikTok while her own daughter was actually using the app for a
Whose
long
page
time.
I
So you might want
follow.
to take care of your family first.
Leave my
before
daughter
preaching to
out of your
anybody else,
voice.
adult daughter.
Well, she's in my subscriber. I'm a subscriber, so
Are using it, and that's
she
actually
just had a Will
the
Smith
her
moment. Slap
supporters
him.
Crapping her up. That's fine. Here's the truth.
You're
The
just
easy
scum.
answer is actually to say
Look
that
at
we're just
her.
going to ban one
Damn.
app. We got to go further.
Now we have to
we
get
have
her
to
TikTok
ban
page.
any U.S. company actually transferring U.S. data to the Chinese. Here's a story most people don't know. Airbnb hands over U.S. user data to the
Look
CCP.
at that smirk on her face.
Now, that's a U.S.-owned company. So this is the problem.
guy
when
who
you have
started
Republicans
Airbnb
that temporarily go the way the winds
ran
blow.
cross
and
country with
now
me in
it's
high school.
popular to talk tough on China. When she was UN ambassador, called them literally her words, not mine, our great friend. You can't be fair weather fans of the right policy. Get to the root cause.
And by the way,
even U.S. companies in Silicon
daughter's
Valley
TikTok
are
page
regularly
sucks.
doing it. Cut the virtue signaling. The fact of the matter is Democrats are on TikTok today. The only person, one of the few people who is putting up content the way the actual algorithms work, speaking for pro-Israel views or others, is
Ambassador
me. And
Haley.
predict
I hope
more
that
Republicans will join
Vivek
it.
starts
Stop
getting on
US companies from
her
turning over
daughter's
data to
TikTok page and
Chinese
starts leaving
companies.
comments on all the
That's
videos.
the virtue
Kristen,
signal.
don't get to respond to personal attacks, but you do.
Thank you very much. You know, when he talks about me praising
25
China,
years old.
he doesn't know the fact that the reason China was
He's
praised
only
was
like a
because
decade older than
I
her.
negotiated with China and Russia the largest set of sanctions against North Korea in a generation. That is literally the reason North Korea stopped testing ballistic missiles. So I said China did good on their part. That was a negotiation.
That's the reason that North Korea
These
stopped
are your words, not
testing.
mine. And so just
It's
own up to
You would
it.
never
You
have
can
been
change your
able to
mind.
get
I'm
that
not
negotiation
reading.
Don't
done.
lie to the people about
I
what
have
you've said
fought
or what you've done
against
in South
China
Carolina.
my
You have brought
entire
them to South
career at
Carolina.
the
Ron is
United
right about
Nations.
that.
Every day I fought China, and I did it
Look at the
by
actual
making sure
hard
no
facts.
one
She
could
brought
get
them to this
any
country.
agency heads
What
in
do you think
UN.
is in that
I
thing
did it
around
by
her
making
neck?
sure
And you know it
that we
opens up. It's
called them out on
black and
human
white.
rights. I did it by making sure
it
that we
gets you
held them
small
accountable
charge.
on everything that they did. That's the reason we
So
got
if
out
she
of the
goes
Human Rights
outside
Council.
of
That's the reason we
some
called them out.
certain area,
And
her head
there's not
explodes.
a day I haven't stopped reading.
I think it's a picture of a dead baby with shrapnel in it.
Everybody else is
What if
hanging
it's
on to the rules here, Mr.
portal to
Ramaswamy.
hell?
Senator Scott.
What if it's what?
Thank you. We should.
What if it's the portal to
I
hell?
appreciate y'all.
It might be.
Wonderful.
Portal to hell.
Without any
He's like,
question,
my girlfriend and
what
I
we
were
should do
discussing
is
this very
ban
subject, the girl that I love.
Period. Now, we saw under former President Trump.
I
he
love my
tried
gay
to
black
ban
vice
TikTok
president.
Twice, but was struck down by our federal courts. If you cannot ban TikTok,
come out,
you should eliminate
Tim.
the Chinese presence on the app. Period. We also should provide, in my parents' Bill of Rights, we give parents the opportunity
could be a-
to
His
give their
parents'
kids
Bill of Rights?
permission under 14.
His parents, yeah,
to
he has
be
his
on
parents
those
makes him
apps.
follow
I
Bill of
think it's
Rights. They're
incredibly
90.
important for
He's
us
60.
as Americans to take back
He looks younger his
control
age.
of
He is
the
in his 60s.
information, especially of our kids.
Gay guys look
Where does
younger.
it go? We should know that. One of the ways that we get to know that is by having a parental consent. But if we can eliminate TikTok, that is a first step. But it's not just TikTok.
Nikki Haley's like,
China
get your daughter. Every time
continues
TikTok comes
to
up,
spy
get
on
my
our
daughter's
kids, but they're
name out of
also
your mouth.
buying our farmlands. We talked about that several times there. We have to make sure that we use the tools that are in our
You think Nikki
toolkit
Haley's
to
daughter has
stop
an
China
OnlyFans?
from buying farmland near our
Dude,
bases. The
Mr.
third thing we have to
President, I
do
gotta
is
show
make
you
sure
something.
that they stop stealing our intellectual property. They're literally stealing our IP to compete against
Oh my
us.
gosh.
My administration, we stopped that day one, and we start making sure that we create six-figure income for jobs made
I
in
like how
America
Nikki Haley
through my
took
strategy.
credit for her fiberglass company
Hugh, thank you so
stopping
much. We're
nuclear
now going to talk
ballistic
about
missiles
Venezuela, where
testing in
millions
North
have
Korea.
fled
Yeah.
political and economic turmoil.
Nikki Haley's
Many
daughter
Venezuelan
is
immigrants are
engaged to
settling right
a
here
black
in
guy
Florida.
who
Former
looks
President Trump and
like
President Biden have
almost
taken
exactly
different
like
approaches to
Tim
Nicolas
Scott,
Maduro's
but
regime
20
with
years
little
younger.
result. Former
I'll show it
President
to you
Trump
during
put
the
economic
commercial
pressure
break.
on Venezuela and backed one of Maduro's rivals. President Biden temporarily eased sanctions to encourage electoral reforms.
Look at that lady
Governor
back there
DeSantis,
just
do
flipping.
you
It's high
see
as
the
hell.
political situation
There's
in
Jesus
Venezuela
focused on the
as a
debate.
threat to the United States, and what would your approach be?
We should never rely on Venezuela for oil like Biden has had to go beg. I'm going to unleash all of America's energy potential. On day one, I'm taking all the Biden regulations, the Green New Deal, ripping it up and throwing it in the trash can where it belongs. We're going to lower your gas prices.
The lady in Florida,
We're going to create jobs. We're going to lower energy costs. But we're also going to be more energy independent and secure. We'll choose Midland over Moscow. We'll choose the Marcellus over the mullahs. And we'll choose Bakken
I think
over
they should
Beijing.
call female
That
governors
is good
governesses.
for America's national security. Biden's Green New Deal, that's good for Venezuela.
I think they should still have to serve their
Russia,
husbands
it's good
dinner.
for Iran, and it's good for China. So I would turn the screws on the Venezuelan regime. I think it's a corrupt, dictatorial regime, and we should never go hat in hand begging for oil.
Mr.
from
President,
them.
I think you should take DeSantis under your wing and help him be
Ambassador
charismatic.
Haley, what would your approach
You know, I think he needs to take about 4 levels of improv classes.
He does need some improv lessons.
For hours in the hot sun, holding their
Maybe you
babies
should
to get
train
the
at
one
the
meal they
Upright
might get
Citizens
that day,
Brigade.
going from Venezuela to Colombia. They were fleeing
I bet
socialism
she
and
hates that
begging
her
for
daughter
freedom.
is engaged
We
to a
need to
black
make sure
guy.
that we
I
do
bet she hates
everything
it.
we can to sanction Maduro. We shouldn't be getting dirty oil, and Biden just gave
The ice
500,000
queen.
Venezuelans temporary priority status, which is just going to have more of them come. But on the energy
more of
side,
them are
it cracks
gonna
me up
come.
that Ron continues to do this. He has opposed fracking. He's opposed drilling.
But did you
Last
see
time
him
he
put
said
on
it
that
wasn't
weird-
true,
he's so
and
awkward.
everybody found out that it was true. He opposed it before Florida voters even voted on it. He was praised by the Sierra Club.
looks like he
and
plays
you're
a lot of
trying to
Dungeons
make
and
up for
Dragons.
it and
There's nothing
act
wrong
like
with
you
that,
weren't
but he does
you
look like
weren't a
he-
liberal when it comes to the environment. You were. You always have been. Just own it if that's the case. But don't keep saying you're something that you're not.
Let me respond to that.
Response, go.
So our whole
Was
energy
she talking
plan,
about Dungeons
you
and
can't get
Dragons
the
or were
shale
you?
without
That was
fracking.
me.
We are absolutely going to
said-
frack, but I disagree with Nikki Haley.
absolutely
I don't
gonna
think it's a
frack.
good idea to drill in the Florida Everglades, and I know most Floridians agree with me.
You banned fracking.
Thank you very much, Lester.
He's like, you're about to get fracked,
Thank you. Let's
bitch.
turn to one of the biggest issues for voters. That, of course, is the economy.
Chris
This
Christie,
is a
one of the
question
biggest
that will go
issues.
to all of you. An Iowa
Well,
voter
finally, we
recently
talk
told
about the
NBC
economy
News,
after
"How
an
am I gonna
hour
make
and
sure
10
my
minutes
country's stocked without
of
breaking
foreign
the bank?"
policy and war.
You've all said the best way to deal with rising prices is to cut government spending. But that would take time to play out, and Americans are struggling right now. Senator Scott,
Does this guy ever
I'll
not
start with
have
you.
an
What
announcer
would you
voice
do
like
the
this?
moment
Hey,
you
honey,
take
I'd like to have
office
some more
to help
juice.
Americans manage the cost of living? So we're talking about short term here.
My mother was a single mother who raised me and my brother in a very challenging economic situation.
I was telling
the
my
first
girlfriend.
thing I can tell you is that when your gas prices are 40% higher right now than they were just a little over 2 years ago, that's not a problem for my mama. That was a crisis. The first thing I would do as President of the United States is I would sign the XL Keystone Pipeline and start seeing resources flow. Second thing I would do is make sure that there's certainty and predictability so that those folks who have the leases in our country would have the certainty and predictability to go ahead and become energy independent. We should focus not just on being energy independent, we should focus on being energy dominant. America is the home to more energy resources than any other country on the planet. We can reduce the price of energy, we can reduce the price of food and the price of electricity if we focus on my build here, don't borrow from China plan that is embedded the Made in America strategy, creates 10 million new jobs in 3 different areas. One is innovation. Second is the high-tech manufacturing. And the third is the energy economy. We have an opportunity as Americans to actually export the surplus energy that we create
This guy
in
needs
our
to be your
nation
VP.
and disconnect from China and from murderous dictators and tyrants around the
Your
world.
time is up, but let me just
I
follow up.
fought
The
off
idea of pumping
3
gas and
robbers
turning on pipelines,
who
that
tried
doesn't
to
make gas
get my
cheaper
girlfriend
that
the
I'm
other
talking
day, and
about
then I gave
you
her a
become
tongue kiss
president.
on her cheek.
What can you do specifically to help people feel better about their situation or be better with their situation?
Be better.
Well, actually, it does, to be honest with you. The way that the economy works is it works on the ability to anticipate excess supply versus the demand. When that happens,
These people are so
confidence
deliberate
drives
about
our
their-
prices down because we
their
know there's going to be a
mannerisms,
greater
their
surplus.
hands
When you
and-
allow for those who have leases to actually start drilling, to start using those leases for more energy excavation, you put our economy in the strongest position. And as a result of that, prices start going down. That is the kind of economy that, as President of the United States, I would lead this nation to making sure that we first use the resources in our own country and not going outside of our country in order to achieve our objective. You know, Proverbs 22:7 reminds us that the borrower
He's going hard with the Bible
is
today.
slave to the lender. We have become an indentured servant too often to countries like China. By having an
Fake always
energy
has a hair
economy,
lick.
we start allowing this nation to once again return.
Senator,
as a
thank you.
city
Let me
on the hill.
ask the same question to Governor DeSantis. Can you give us some, you ticked off a number of things a moment ago, but some specific examples of
tick-tocked a
ways
number of
that
things a moment ago.
would put people on a better economic footing right away?
So I started off working minimum wage jobs. I did $6 an hour as an electrician's assistant. I
Sucks
worked
dick for
all kinds of things
$15
to be
an
able to
hour.
get through school. And I did that because I believed in America, if you work hard and get the most out of your God-given ability, you can get ahead. And what's happening
can
now,
get some head.
many of you are working hard and you're falling further and further behind. I've met people in Iowa, New Hampshire, and all across the country who've talked about all the burdens that they're facing with the rising prices. And I've heard from multiple people the same story. When they go grocery shopping, what they now do is they figure out what they have to take out of the cart once it's ringing up, because it rings up so much faster and so much higher at the cash register
It's true.
that they can't afford the full cart of groceries
it's like
anymore.
You got to pay a
have
$70
restore the
entry fee to
American
get into the
dream in
grocery
this country.
stores. You
What
can't
can
get
do
out of
on
there
day one?
under $100.
Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take all the executive orders, the regulations, everything involving Bidenomics. I'm going to rip it up, and I'm going to throw it in the trash can on day one where it belongs. That is going to give the economy breathing room, and I'm also going to rein in the Federal Reserve. They have helped create, with their reckless monetary policy, what we have faced since the COVID-19 pandemic. They botched it. Congress botched it. Both parties are to blame. Fed should focus on stable prices. They are not an economic central planner for the American people.
Governor, thank you. Mr. Ramaswamy,
I have a question
weigh in
for
on
you,
this.
Mr. President, at the next
Ways that
break
you can improve
from
people's
the
financial
Rockfin
condition
chats.
in the short term.
Right, and as a CEO, the economic question is core to my vision and policy prescription for this country.
The
Increase the supply
articulator.
of everything. It's the law of supplies and demand. Increase the supply of energy. That brings down the cost of energy, grows the economy.
micro machine
Drill,
man.
frack, burn coal, embrace nuclear. Increase the supply of labor in this country. Stop using our taxpayer money to pay people more to stay at home instead of to go to work. Increase the supply
That
of
microphone
housing.
is covered
People don't
in
talk
spit
about this one in the Republican Party.
in front of
the
the
land use restrictions are constricting the supply of housing. That's making housing more expensive for ordinary Americans across this country. So that's the true answer. And I think it takes a
Across this
CEO in the White
country.
House who actually understands this to get this done. Because Americans at home, they know the Bidenomics is a lie. Prices are going up. Interest rates and mortgages to buy your home are going up. But wages have remained flat. That's the hard diagnosis for our economy.
I wish you would just
And
call
this is
Nikki
about more than just
Haley
our
a cunt.
economy. I say this
Like
as a
that-
member
that
of my
would-
generation.
I mean, I think about
I'm
voting
38
for
years
him if he
old. I'm
did
the
that.
youngest person ever to run for U.S. president as a
38
Republican.
years old.
The reason my generation has lost our sense of national pride in part is because people in my generation feel like the American dream isn't available to them. And part of the reason why is we burdened them with four-year college degrees that did not
That do
serve
nothing,
their head
that are
start on the American
worthless.
dream. People will be more proud of a country if we're all making more money in that
There's
country.
that white nationalist
This is how we
symbol
revive
again.
national pride and our identity, and it will take a CEO in the White House with zero-based budgeting, by the way, to take on the
Mr.
federal debt.
Ramaswamy, thank
I'd
you.
like a
Mr.
hamburger
Governor
with
Christie on that.
zero ketchup.
Look, Lester, part of the entire premise of the question, and I agree with Tim on this, is absolutely energy is the key to this because it drives every one of those other prices. You know, now food gets to your grocery store, it gets trucked. And those truckers have to pay for fuel and for the higher fuel prices. And when you go ahead and you tell people, we are going to unleash every bit of American energy, every bit of its potential, what happens in the futures markets? The prices go down because those people who are believing that the Biden program will continue are the ones who are bidding this up. And let me tell you the other place that's bidding it up, in the Middle East. And so if you don't believe that making sure that Israel and that Israel situation that's going on right now isn't resolved and resolved quickly as President of the United States and bring stability
better go to
back,
Qatar and
that
take
will
out their
also
leaders
not
then.
permit countries like Saudi Arabia and others to be able to jack their prices as well in what they say is in response to a crisis, when it's really what it's in response to is putting more money in their pockets. When they have an American president who knows that Israel must be defended not with humanitarian pauses and not with
He can't be
suggestions
president
for
because
ceasefire,
Russia or
but
China
letting
would
them
just
know
distract him
we
with a
will
hoagie
supply them with everything
and get
they
away
need.
with anything.
That will also bring stability to the market. Energy is the key to bringing this down. It's what every American family needs when they turn on their lights, fill up their car, and go to the grocery store. And we need to do that first and foremost. That's the short-term answer.
Governor Christie, thank you. Ambassador Haley, let me come at this from a slightly different direction.
How many
Americans
foreigners
in rural
would you kill,
communities are being
Ambassador?
especially squeezed by inflation right now. An Iowa State University study found that last year inflation cost rural households about an extra $5,000. How would you specifically help
cost a lot,
rural
for sure.
Americans who are suffering right now, Ambassador?
Well, I'm a product of rural America. I grew up in rural South Carolina. And I can tell you what we're seeing now
Lindsey
in America is the
Graham
rich
country.
are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. We have to go and start beefing up the middle class. And the first thing I
Beefing.
would do is I will eliminate the federal gas and diesel tax in this country. We'll cut taxes on the middle class. But we have to stop this spending binge that's happening by Republicans and Democrats in Congress. I will make sure, one, we claw back the $500 billion of unspent COVID dollars that are out there. Instead of 87,000 IRS agents going after middle America, we'll go after the hundreds of billions of dollars of COVID fraud that exist, one out of every $7. We'll stop the spending, we'll stop the borrowing, we'll eliminate the earmarks, and I'll veto any spending bill that doesn't go back to pre-COVID levels. That will cut trillions and allow us to be safe. We also
I think
need to
she
be
could
not
pull
energy
the severed
independent,
head of an
energy
Arab out from underneath that
dominant.
podium, throw it
We are
on the
blessed with
stage,
resources, let's
and
do
say,
it.
"This is
But
for
the reason
America."
no
And I
one
think that
should
she'd
give
get
you
a standing
number, Hugh,
ovation.
on the amount of ships in the Navy is because in a few years, our interest expense is going to be more than our defense budget. So no one can give you that number realistically.
Look at them. Look at
without
Vivek
first
and Scott.
tackling what's
They're
happening with the
talking and laughing
financial
at her. Did you see
situation.
that?
It would be a false number to give you that. We have got to understand this is a crisis. It is a national
they were
security
flirting.
concern. If we don't deal with what's going to happen with that interest expense in a few years, we're going to look like Japan, and we can't let that happen. The strong dollar
What does that mean?
matters.
Ambassador, thank you very much. Kristen.
Americans could
Wow.
Americans
That's
could see
very
their Social Security
racist.
benefits drastically cut in the next
She's
decade
kinda
because
square
the program is
looking to
running
me
out
with
of money.
her face.
Former President Trump has said, quote, under no circumstances should Republicans cut entitlements.
Did you say
Governor
that?
Christie, first to you. You have proposed raising the retirement age for younger Americans.
Fuck Nikki
what
Haley.
Would that age
Well,
be
somebody apparently
specifically,
does,
and
'cause
would
she
you
has a
consider
child. I'm
making
guessing
any
her
other
husband.
reforms to Social Security?
Sure,
Yes.
and we have to deal with this problem. Now, look, if we raise the retirement age a few years for folks that are in their 30s and 40s, I have a son who's in the audience.
Just imagine him saying we have to deal with this problem, and the camera panning out, and there's like a 35-foot sub in front of him, and he takes care of it himself.
Years, I got bigger problems with him than his Social Security payments. And the fact is, we need to be realistic about this. There are only three things that go into determining whether Social Security can be solvent or not.
What's that?
Retirement age, eligibility for the program in general, and taxes. That's it. We are already overtaxed in this country, and we should not raise those taxes. But on eligibility also, I don't know if out there tonight, and if you're watching Warren, I don't know if Warren Buffett is collecting Social Security, but if he is, shame on you. You shouldn't be taking the money.
Oh, good
There are a
job.
lot of
Shame on him.
programs in this country that we all pay for that we don't get a direct benefit from. Food stamps is one of them. I've never, fortunately in my life, ever had me or my family on
eaten a food stamp.
But I'm glad it's there so that no one in this country goes to bed hungry at night if they have availability to that program. But I don't get a direct benefit. The fact is, on Social Security, remember why it was established.
Christie on
It was
food
established
stamps.
as a safety net program to make sure that no one would grow old in this country in poverty. That's what we got to get back to. Rich people should not be collecting Social Security.
Governor, can you give me a specific age? 69, 70? What would the age be?
No, look, that's going to be a part of a negotiation with Congress, Kirsten. And hell, I'm not going to start negotiating until I get there.
All right,
thanks,
Ambassador
Mr.
Haley,
President.
let me have you weigh in on this because you said in June that you would be open to raising.
It's like
the
her face
retirement
has
age Have you determined what that age would be specifically, and what other
a Zoom
reforms are you
filter
looking
on
at?
it.
So first of all, any candidate that tells you that they're not going to take on entitlements is not being serious. Social Security will go bankrupt in 10 years. Medicare will go bankrupt in 8. Right now, you have Ron and Trump joining Biden and Pelosi saying they're not going
Look
to
at
change
Chris
or
Christie
do any
lusting
sort of
after her
entitlement
right
reform.
now.
What we need to do is keep
Chris
our
Christie's
promises.
lusting
Those that have been
after
promised
the same way
should
that
keep
he
it.
does
But for
shitting
like my
up.
kids in their 20s, you go and you say we're going to change the rules. You change the
whenever
retirement age for them. Instead of
DeSantis
cost of
is
living
speaking, he
increases,
always
we
has
should
kind
go
of
to
this look on
increases
his
based on inflation. We should
face.
limit benefits on the wealthy. Bernie Marcus can tell you he hates getting
Look at
that
him.
check.
He wants to
Limit the
eat
benefits
her.
on the wealthy, and then expand Medicare Advantage plans. Seniors love that, and let's make sure we do that so
That
they
is
can
a
have more
portal to hell
competition.
around
That's
it.
how we'll deal with entitlement reform, and that's how we'll start to pay down this debt.
They
Can
should
you give me
fucking
a
speak
specific
in
age? Have you
languages that
determined the
people
age?
understand and
Again, you have
don't
to work
fall
with-
asleep
Chris,
to.
what I can tell you is
Like you do,
it's going to
Mr.
be
President.
those in their 20s just coming into the system, and it should reflect more of life expectancy. It doesn't do that now.
All right, Mr. Ramaswamy.
Yeah, she's got a Zoom
have
filter in real
you
time.
Determined
Ramaswamy.
if you would touch entitlements
Ramaswamy is
and
like a
Social Security.
South
What,
Park
if any,
character
reforms
name.
are you looking at?
So this is really important right now. We're working within the last window I believe we will have to actually fix this problem while still leaving Social Security and Medicare benefits for current seniors intact. I'll tell you how. The other candidates assume, like Nikki, that it can't be done. And on her math, she's
Like
right
this
about
bitch,
it.
Nikki.
But her math assumes $7 trillion.
Yeah, she was a
of our
mean
$33
girl. You guys are
trillion
right in the
national
chats.
debt going
When
to
you look
fight
at her.
wars like in places like Iraq and Afghanistan. Minus that, our national debt would be $26 trillion right now. Then you go to zero-based budgeting, which I've proposed as a CEO. It's how I've run businesses. It's how many
be a funny
CEOs
sketch,
run
how to
businesses.
do your hands
Don't
during
use
a
last year's budget
debate.
as the baseline.
It's all very deliberate.
Start with 0 as the baseline, and then ask what's actually necessary. 75% headcount reduction. Yes, that is severe. In the number of federal employees in the Washington, D.C. bureaucracy. Shut down redundant agencies that should not exist.
He does wanna
Deliver
do that, he
economic
said.
growth as a positive tailwind. I think we can get to 3, 4, maybe even 5% GDP growth if we really take the regulatory shackles off of our economy. And against that backdrop, I believe this is our last best window to be able to take care of our national debt problem through those severe measures, including sacrificing the foreign wars that many bloodthirsty members of both parties have a hunger for. That's the one secret for how we're going to be able to do this, and that requires discipline. So we can't have the first conversation we were having, sending foreign aid willy-nilly to countries whose national debt per capita is less than ours.
Thank you,
But if
Mr.
we do this
Ramaswamy.
correctly, I think this is our last window, and it'll take a CEO from the next generation to do it.
Thank you very much. Senator Scott, weigh in here. What are you looking at to keep Social Security sustainable?
I'm Zoom filter in real
The
life.
bottom line is a simple one. We have to
Like my
grow
girlfriend
our
told me.
economy and cut our spending. Let me just say to my mama and to every other mama or
My lady.
grandfather receiving Social Security, as President of the United States,
He needs
I
a
will
t-shirt that
protect
says
your
heterosexual.
Social Security. The fact is that we're spending today about $1.1 trillion of Social Security, about $750 billion on Medicare, about $300 billion
I can't decide
on
if he or
Medicaid,
Vivek would be a
about $400
funnier
billion on veterans
vice
benefits,
president for you,
$1.7 trillion on
Mr.
annual
Trump.
appropriations. If we're going to actually tame this tiger, the way you
I mean,
do
Vivek
is not
does
by
a pretty
picking
good
on
job
seniors
campaigning
who
for
have
me,
paid
but I don't
into
see
a
him as a vice
program
president.
that deserve their money
I
coming
wish he could
back
have
out to
co-vice
them.
presidents.
The way you deal with it is, number one, you have to grow your economy. My plan, Made in America, creates
These are my
10 million
co-vice
new jobs,
presidents.
grows our economy at 5%. By doing so, you add trillions of dollars of economic activity and billions of dollars to your treasury. Number two, you have to cut taxes. When we cut taxes,
Haley's
in
the only one who
2017, I
knows
wrote the
that
Tax Cuts and
when she's
Jobs
not
Act.
speaking, the
Everybody
camera
said,
goes
well,
on her.
Guess what? Revenue will go down. Well, in 2018,
people's
after we wrote
faces
in
change when they don't
2017,
take the
what
cameras
happened?
on.
Revenue went up by 3%, and the next year it went up by another 3%. So what we know is that the Laffer curve still works, but the lower the tax, the higher the revenue. And finally, if we're going to deal with it, we have to take our annual appropriations back to pre-2020, pre-COVID levels of spending, which would save us
Like
about
I was
$500
telling my
billion
girl.
in the next budget window. By doing
Senator,
that, we deal with
thank
Social
you.
Security and our mandatory spending.
Thank you, Senator.
It's like,
Very
what did he
quickly,
just
would you raise
say?
the retirement age?
I
Would
get
you
it,
open
but
to
like-
raising the retirement age, or do you rule that out?
How about
All you
not
have to do
fucking
is
boring
go
the hell
to
out of
a
these
farm
subjects?
in Iowa and watch the hard work and the dedication.
Yes or
you and
no,
I
though,
having
Senator?
a conversation.
Yes or
the
no?
answer
Yes or
is
no, are you
but
gay?
Listen to this, though, before you go on. Thank you. The fact of the matter is that the more physical your labor, a year or 2 or 3 more is actually challenging to the physical body. You and I might have a different perspective, but for those farmers, they're working night and day.
Thank you, Senator.
She cuts him off when he starts talking about actual people. Why is she the only one asking questions? The gay guy with the third jizz only asked like three.
I know a few people on Social Security, and I know it's important. My grandmother lived till 91, and Social Security was her sole source of income, and that's true for a lot of seniors throughout this country. So what I'd say to seniors in America, promise made, promise kept. I understand what you're going through with the rising prices.
I too am a
and
senior.
you need that Social Security check. So we'll make sure to get that done. What can you do to help shore up Social Security? One of the things that's causing problems is the inflation.
Let somebody just tell me how you can make things not expensive
when you
as
have
hell.
higher inflation, the seniors get a cost of living adjustment, which means the program's spending
A
more.
VP reality
but it
show
doesn't
says
cover
Sir Tim
the increase in the
Tunnels.
actual inflation
Mr.
rate.
President, I think that's a great idea.
We also do need to get to at least 3% growth. You're never going to be able to have issues be able to solve the budget without that. But I would note this. Congress for decades took money from Social Security. Social Security would have more tax revenue than it put out. They would take it and then they'd write an IOU to Social Security. Congress has a lot of dirty hands on this. I'm going to force Congress to stop spending so much money. And you know, one thing we have to do, we talk about the retirement age, is just something that's changed in the last 4 or 5 years. Life expectancy in the United States is declining.
So, Governor,
in this
yes
country.
or no? Would you raise it? Would you raise the retirement age?
When life expectancy is declining,
She doesn't have
I don't
a
see
flaw
how you
in
can
her
raise
skin.
it the other
She
direction.
looks-
So it's one thing to peg it on life expectancy,
peg it.
but we have had a significant decline in life expectancy in this country.
you
and
rule
Yeah,
yes.
you saw the ice
All right,
cream's eyes
Governor
light
DeSantis,
up
thank you,
on
thank
that
you,
one.
candidates, and we will be
Yeah,
right
she's
back
like,
after
life
a quick break
expectancy.
from Miami, Florida.
All right. Okay, so I'm just perplexed by the skin of the only moderator that gets to speak. But I did have a thought for Stacey Abrams, or not Stacey Abrams. I blew the nickname I was going to give you, but I think a good nickname for Chris Christie would be Chris Stacey Abrams Christie, because I feel like they're the same soul.
Krispy Kreme Christie,
Krispy Kreme Christie is pretty good.
because I feel like him and donuts have the same soul.
He does. It's like, but he still eats him. He has a hard time.
Yeah, he just eats the souls of other donuts. That's how he stays alive.
Yeah, he's like, was it Highlander or something like that? He gets
Yeah,
all the
there can
souls,
only be one.
and he is the only donut that will remain. Look at this picture.
He is a donut. Look at the fat Chris Christie.
Chris Christie just looks like I don't make fun of people who like if people trying to lose weight. Like I encourage that, whatever. Chris Christie is just like a disgusting person, and everything he does is just it's indulgence, and he's such a bought and paid for prick that I don't have any sympathy for him. Look at this, Mr. President.
I mean, everybody's bought and paid for on that panel except for Vivek, right?
Well, some people would say that he was as well, but he's the only one.
I mean,
that's
that's
the
what
least
he
bit
said in
entertaining.
like debate too.
Yes, he did. He had the best line of the night for sure when he said that something about the 3-inch heels, and we have 2 of them tonight, which actually was a double slam because he hits Nikki Haley by saying Nikki Haley wears heels, but she also looks like Dick Cheney because it was Dick Cheney in heels. But then it was also, here's a dude next to me who everybody knows has been wearing heels, and DeSantis, this is a problem. He's got to address that. He's got to make fun of himself. He can say, yeah, I'm wearing heels right now because whatever. I don't know. That's a tough thing to make an excuse for, but you can't ignore what's obvious. Do you see the picture on the screen? Does that not look like Tim Scott 20 years ago? This is Nikki Haley's daughter, engaged to young Tim Scott, young
And
heterosexual.
her boyfriend.
Yeah. She's hot. But that's her husband. It's like Tim Scott before he didn't come out of the closet. I loved how mad she got when you keep my daughter's name out of your mouth.
So she pulled the Will Smith line, huh?
Yeah, did you hear her say that? She said just about. She went full Will Smith. I would have liked to seen some physical.
The Ice Queen.
Here is the Micro Machine ad you were talking about earlier.
The This is the Micro Machine Man, presenting the most midget miniature motorcade of micro machines. Each one has dramatic details, terrific trim, precision paint jobs, plus incredible micro machine pocket playsets. There's a police station, fire station, restaurant, service station, and more. Perfect pocket portables to take any place. And there are many miniature playsets to play with, and each one comes with its own special edition micro machine vehicle and fun, fantastic features that miraculously move. Raise the boat lift at the airport marina, man the gun turret at the army base, clean your car at the car wash, raise the toll bridge. And these playsets fit together to form a micro machine world. Micro machine pocket playsets, so tremendously tiny, so perfectly precise, so dazzlingly detailed, you'll want to pocket them all. Micro machines and micro machine pocket playsets sold separately from Galoob. The smaller they are, the better they are.
So Vivek has this guy's energy. Except he's slowed down. He's like the Micro Machine Man with the same intensity, but he's trained himself to pull it back and super enunciate like the articulator he is. Yeah, I can totally see that. This guy's he's the world's fastest talker, actually. There's a bunch of, I remember watching videos of this guy when I was younger of him doing, he's a guy's like, $5 this, $10 this, and you can't even hear a freaking word he says. Oh, they're letting the gay guy speak. Let me get him back on stage. I would feel a little insulted. So if I'm one of these guys on stage, I'm calling out how this is not.
Didn't you say there was a question from Rockfin?
Yes, a question from Rockfin about Trump was, why is Trump not in this debate right now?
Because I'm here. On the propaganda report.
Yeah, you had other obligations.
This is a rally right here.
Do you see that? So that's supposed to be.
How many people are watching right now, Brad? 20, 40,000 people.
20, 40, 80,000 people. So we have multiple platforms. I have 20 or so on 3 or 4 platforms here. So we got a good number here watching. Oh,
so Brad, how was the re-education training from YouTube?
You know, I learned about exactly what I'm supposed to say and what I'm not supposed to say, and they promised to. I got 100% on it on the cyberbullying harassment training, and they did not remove my strike like they promised they would. Here is the heterosexual, very heterosexual, Tim Scott.
By sanctioning their accounts and eliminating their cash, we starve them of what they need. Number one, closing our southern border makes it nearly impossible to get in. The military-grade technology.
It'd be funny if he just came out super against gays. Like a sex message.
70,000 deaths in the last 12 months because of fentanyl. It also allows us to deal with the human trafficking travesty that is entering in our country in the same path. If we
Chris Christie has based his personality on Sopranos, so Tim, I think that's a good observation.
Overdose deaths in our country and the 70,000 that is directly linked to fentanyl, we have to deal with our ports of entry and deal with our southern border. If we do that effectively, we have started reducing the challenge from the outside, and then we have to deal with the challenge on the inside, which seems to be connected to a mental health crisis.
They speak like they're talking to their dogs.
Governor Christie, Senator Scott just mentioned ports of entry. 90% of the fentanyl that is seized in the United States is seized at ports of entry. We don't know what's coming in across the open southern border. You've been a United States attorney. You've taken on cartels.
Doesn't he sound infectious when he speaks?
What would you do as president?
It can be done quickly in 2 ways, Hugh, on fentanyl. The first way is exactly as you suggest, at ports of entry. We have to beef up what our law enforcement has in terms of technology. I would invest in that as president. We need to make sure that law enforcement has every tool at its disposal to do it. Secondly, on day one, I would sign an executive order that would send the National Guard
Tim
to
says
partner
Christo
with
Christie,
Customs
brilliant,
and Border
Mr.
Patrol,
President.
both at ports of entry and at the open ports of our border.
Or
Customs and Border
Crisco
Patrol
Christie.
agents are overwhelmed.
Yeah, that's what he said.
200,000 encounters a month.
I think
over the last 11 months.
Crisco Christie
we simply do not have the man and woman power
could
at the border to be able to
block
deal with it.
the border
And so
himself.
Dealing with both law
He could just lay
enforcement
down.
and you're right.
I think you put some breaded wings in Chris Christie's asshole and they come out fried.
We don't have enough of at the ports of entry. Now, we also need to lower demand
got a fryer
in this country. And the
It's
way
like
to
an
lower
air
demand is to
fryer.
start treating people again. You know, we started to do this before COVID, and we haven't done enough of it. And for every family out there tonight who has lost a loved one to fentanyl
Nikki's
or
daughter's
any other
hot,
type of
and
opioid
she's
overdose,
banging
what you know
young
is all you want
Tim Scott.
is a chance for them to win their lives back.
That's
I'm
got to at
president of
least
the United
make
States.
them
We're going to
Scott
call
feel
this
good,
what it
right?
is. It is a disease.
He should
like
start
heart
saying
disease,
that
diabetes,
that's his
or
fiance.
any other
Nikki
disease
Haley's
like cancer that can be treated, should be treated. We not only have to stop supply, but we have to lower
Oh, he's
demand
going to
and save
cure
lives.
cancer just like
Governor
Biden
DeSantis,
always promises. I'm going to cure
you
cancer
have
today.
about using United States
And then I'm
Special
going to
Forces
kill
to
somebody's
attack the
grandma by
cartels
shutting down the
where they
beaches in the
manufacture
interstates.
the chemicals that come from China. How often?
He
how many,
sounds ill.
What does that look like?
Well, first, I was speaking to a dad who lost a son to fentanyl overdose. Son wasn't a drug addict. He had taken some pill that happened to be laced with fentanyl.
Yeah, you gotta be careful of that
and it was a
shit.
fatal overdose. And when he told me, obviously the pain of losing a
How is
child
a
is as bad as
pill
it gets.
laced
But he
in
said what was
fentanyl?
salt in the
Everything
wounds
apparently they say
that
is
these
laced with
elites in
fentanyl. They're
DC
probably doing
don't
it.
give a
I don't know who's
damn
doing it,
about
but
what's going on in this country. They don't care that we have tens of thousands of opioid deaths, that the fentanyl's pouring in. They are not taking the type of action that we need to. We're declaring it a national emergency on day one. I'm sending U.S. military to the
slitting
border.
throats
I'm going to
has been a
stop
national
the invasion
emergency.
cold. I am going to deport people who came illegally. And I'm even going to
I
build
love
the
how
border
he's
wall
like,
and have Mexico
should
pay
point at
for it
Vivek
like
when
Donald
he
Trump
says that.
promised. How are you going to do it? Yeah, Mexico's
Gonna
not
deport
going to fork over
Vivek
money.
day one.
We're going to impose fees on the remittances that foreign workers send to foreign countries. We'll raise billions of dollars. I'll build a wall. But we are going to designate the cartels to be foreign terrorist organizations or something similar to that. And we're going to authorize the use of deadly force. We're going to have maritime operations to interdict precursor chemicals going into Mexico. But I'll tell you this.
DeSantis is the guy you have to tell to stop creeping out the girls
border
at the
when I'm
bar.
president, that's going to be the last thing they do. We're going to shoot them stone cold dead.
Ambassador Haley.
He seems too serious when he uses that rhetoric.
The United States
he's
uses
really gonna
special
kill
forces
people.
in Mexico
I mean, he will.
without prior notice to the Mexican allies to our south. What would
God.
your colleagues at the United Nations think about that?
I don't care what my colleagues
Sounds
at
like
the
he's
United
spraying
Nations think.
H1N1
What I'll
all
tell
over the
you is,
stage. He doesn't care.
first of all, you have to go to the source. We
think
have
she's
lost
waxed,
more
Mr.
Americans in the
President?
Vietnam,
Waxed.
Afghanistan, and Iraq wars combined. We lost
Probably.
75,000 Americans last year. Go to the source. It is the reason why we'll continue to say we will end all normal trade relations with China until they stop
End all
murdering Americans.
normalcy.
You watch how quick that flow stops. The second thing
The
is we'll
flow
send special
stops.
operations in to take out the cartels. We need to go to where they're distributing it, where the supply centers are, and take them out. We'll put 25,000 more Border Patrol and ICE agents on the ground and let them do their job. We will defund sanctuary cities. We will go back to the Remain in Mexico policy so that everybody stays in Mexico and they never get here in the first place. And instead of catch and deport, we'll go to catch and release. I'm sorry, instead of catch and release,
just
Oh,
we'll go
love,
to catch and deport. That is
catch
the way
and
we'll deal
deport.
with the border.
Okay.
Those are the things that we have to do going forward. But I do agree
the
with
best
Chris.
part
One
is
of the first
Vivek
things that we have to do
and his daughter- her
is
daughter's
really
TikTok
focus
page.
on mental health and addiction centers.
The best
It
part
is
of
something that is
waking up
needed
is
in our country
Vivek in
terribly
your
because
cup.
we don't deal with mental health. And someone who doesn't get care for mental health falls into addiction. And we owe it to them to treat it like the cancer that it is.
Mr. Ramaswamy.
Well, I was watching your daughter's
Special
YouTube
forces in
page.
Mexico shoot them stone cold
And
dead at the
congratulations,
border.
Mr.
One
Scott,
thing I
on
just
your
wanna say
recent
how we're talking
engagement
about this issue is,
to Miss Haley's
like Ron,
daughter.
I've actually met many parents across this country who have lost their kids to laced pharmaceuticals that have fentanyl in them. The only thing I would ask, Ron, I think you'd be on the same page with me on this. Let's not even call that an overdose.
Right.
That is not an overdose. That is poisoning. If you put that fentanyl in a Big Mac, we would not call that an overdose. You'd call it
We'd
what it
call
is.
it a good
It's
time.
closer to
Well, a
bioterrorism.
Big Mac is
And I say that
poisoning,
because
isn't it?
as it uniquely
A
relates
Big
to
Mac,
this
that's what I
crisis,
had for dinner.
that does warrant
Chrissy's like,
more
I can eat
aggressive
10
means
pounds of
to
fentanyl and it
deal
doesn't
with
faze me.
So there's a new presidential election in Mexico in 2024. People may not be aware of that. It's going to be someone other than Obrador, who has been a disaster in Mexico. I think he's
Obrador?
even mentioned me obliquely in
Is he
President
one of the
Obrador.
evil
Shouldn't get anyone near the
wizards
White House.
from...
Well, AMLO, get out of the way.
It's the wizard
line-
president
the
of
one-
Mexico,
else-
yes.
I hope to build a
Yeah,
good
yeah.
relationship with
You
that
didn't know a
next president of
magician was
Mexico.
the president of Mexico?
We'll use our own military to seal our own southern border. What we need to do is stop using our military to protect somebody else's border halfway around the world when we're short right here at home. Get serious about protecting this border. And then the other thing that hasn't been discussed is the northern border. I'm the only candidate on the stage, as
He
far as
did
I'm
do
aware,
this.
who has actually visited the
Yeah,
northern
he
border.
videoed himself
There was
doing this.
enough fentanyl that was captured just on the northern border last year to kill 3 million Americans. So we got to just skate to where the puck is going, not just where the puck is.
He walked
Don't
across
just
a
build
short,
the
like a
wall,
small
build
river
both
on the
walls.
northern border,
Can't just
and he's like
complete the
showing how
wall,
easy it
use
was
the
to cross
military
over.
to seal the Swiss cheese for the tunnels that they're
Seal
actually
the
building
Swiss
underneath
cheese.
that wall.
Thank you,
That's
Mr.
what it needs to be
Ramaswamy.
practical and actually get this job done.
Thank you. Kristen.
Thank you, Hugh.
Phew.
Let's talk now about last night's election results. Abortion rights
The porn
supporters
star
saw
in
victories
Virginia
in
did
Ohio
lose
and
her
Virginia,
race.
following earlier wins in states
Virginia,
like Kansas and Kentucky. Governor DeSantis, first to you, how do you see the path forward for Republicans on this issue?
Well, I stand for a culture of life, and I understand that it's important that everyone gets a shot. I'm reminded of a story about a young mother who was struggling in Jamaica about 45 years ago. She was counseled to not have a baby because she was poor, baby wouldn't have opportunity, and she came close to have an abortion, but she decided to have the baby, born poor in Jamaica. And the reason I know that story is because that baby girl ended up emigrating to the state of Florida, becoming a lawyer and a judge, and I appointed her to the Florida Supreme Court in August of 2022.
On day one.
We're better off when everybody counts.
Isn't wait a week.
We're better off when we can promote a culture of life. At the same time, I understand that some of these states are doing it a little bit different. Texas is not going to do it the same as New Hampshire. Iowa's not necessarily going to do it the same as Virginia. So you got to work from the bottom up. You got to do a better job on these referenda. I think of all the stuff that's happened to the pro-life cause, they have been caught flat-footed on these referenda, and they have been losing the referenda. A lot of the people who are voting for the referenda are Republicans who would vote for a Republican candidate. So you got to understand how to do that.
Candidates have
just
just
be
cucked
clear.
themselves
The
with the
Democrats
first
have
half of
taken
the
a
debate.
position.
It's
They
just,
will not identify
you can see how
the point
controlled they
at
are
which
with
there
their
should be
Israel
any
foreign
protection
policy
all the way
messages.
up until birth. That is wrong, and we cannot stand for that.
So they have to have the
Governor
domestic
DeSantis,
stuff to
thank
make
you.
it look like they're
Ambassador Haley,
different
let me have
now.
you weigh in. Former President Trump has consistently blamed the abortion issue.
Uh-oh,
and
talking about you.
Republican candidates have talked about it for their electoral losses. How do you
Bring
see
it
the path
on.
forward?
You know, I've said it before. I think you have to be honest with the American people.
Zoom
This
face.
is a personal issue for every woman and every man. I am unapologetically pro-life, not because the Republican Party tells me to be, but because my husband Michael was adopted, and I had trouble having both of my children. So I'm surrounded by
I gave my
blessings.
husband up for adoption
Having said
before
that,
we
when
got
you look
married, 30 years before.
post-Roe, a wrong was made right. They took it out of the hands of unelected justices and they put it in the hands of the people. And now we're seeing states vote. And what I'll tell you is, as much as I'm pro-life, I don't judge anyone for being pro-choice, and I don't want them to judge me for being pro-life. So when we're looking
I
at
think
this,
she'd
there's
slit
some
her own
states that are
baby's
going more
throat
on the pro-life
if it
side.
guaranteed
I
she'd
welcome
be
that.
president.
There's some states that are going
I
more on
think
the
she wouldn't
pro-choice
hesitate.
side. I wish that wasn't
She's
the
a
case,
dude?
but the
Tom, does she
people
think that
decided.
Haley's a
But
dude?
when it comes to the federal law, which is what's being
Maybe.
debated here, be honest, it's going to take 60 Senate votes, a majority of the House, and a president to sign it. So no, we haven't had 60 Senate votes in over 100 years. We might have 45 pro-life senators. So no Republican president can ban abortions any more than a Democrat president can ban these state laws. So let's
Abortion,
find consensus.
it's just
Let's
they're
agree
always
on
going to use it
how
as a
we
wedge
can ban
issue.
late-term
It's all
abortions.
divide and rule
Let's make sure
bullshit.
we encourage adoptions and good quality adoptions. Let's make sure we make contraception accessible. Let's make sure that none of these state laws put a woman in jail or give her the death
Let's
penalty
make sure
for getting an
other
abortion. Let's
mothers
focus
like
on
me
how to
who
save
give their
as many
babies up
babies
for
as we
adoption can later
and
marry
support as
them.
many moms as we can, and stop
Thank
the
you,
judgment. We don't
I-
need to
I
divide
think one of
America
those-
over this issue anymore.
Thank you, Ambassador.
Atom colliders is inside that little thing on her chest, Mr. President, her necklace.
Senator Scott, I'd like
You know, open up
to
a
weigh
black
in.
hole.
Tiny Hadron
How do you
Collider.
see
Yeah.
the path forward, and what do you make of what Ambassador Haley
Here
just
is
said?
Well,
Do
she
you see
throws
this as
it
a
down and
consensus issue?
grows
I'm
400
100%
miles.
pro-life. I have 100% pro-life.
Here's
voting
Nikki
record.
Haley's
I would certainly, as President of the United States,
son-in-law
have a
speaking.
15-week national limit. I would not allow states like California, Illinois, or New York to have abortion up until the day of birth. I certainly wouldn't not allow for governors,
I would end abortion
former
at
governor,
3 months after
Democratic
birth.
Governor of Virginia, who talked about infanticide. We need a 15-week federal limit. 3 out of 4 Americans agree.
I
with
wonder
the
if Carl
15-week limit.
Banks was his hero
47 out of
coming up.
50 countries in
You
Europe
know he
agree
loved
with the
Carlson. That was his
15-week limit.
favorite character
I
on
would
Fresh
challenge
Prince.
both Nikki and Ron to join me at a 15-week limit. It is in our nation's best interest, and frankly, I think it's unethical.
My
and
girlfriend wouldn't be here
immoral
today
to allow for abortions
without something
up
like that.
until the day of birth. We have an opportunity.
I wish she had a pin.
The perfect thing for Tim would be
reckless behavior from states like California,
Michael J.
New York,
Fox,
and Illinois. I'd go a step
Michael
further.
B.
In
Keaton,
my parents' plan,
meeting
we start by
Carlton
talking
Banks.
about funding, block granting resources to crisis pregnancy centers. We should support adoption.
That'd be a great
there
presidential
are a number
ticket.
Of ways that we can say to
Carlton
the expected
Banks and
mother
Michael J.
that
Fox.
we stand with you. We should not only be pro-life before the
We
child
stand
is
with the
born,
mothers. I
we
hope
should be
one day my
pro-life
girlfriend will
after
be a
the child is
mother.
born just as much.
Senator Scott, thank you.
So I want you,
Ambassador Haley, your
when
name
this
on the
ends, I
vote
want
to
you to tell
support
me
a
who your
15-week
pick for vice
federal
president
limit.
would
I
be
would
out of
support
this group.
anything that would
So
pass, because that's what would
be
save
thinking
more
about it like
babies
that,
and
Mr.
support more
President.
moms. But you have to be honest with the American people, and I appreciate that Tim keeps calling me out for this. But Tim, there was a bill last year. Lindsey Graham sponsored it. You didn't even co-sponsor the bill. And then when you
Look at him, he's
first were
mad.
interviewed
I
on
feel like
this,
a laser is
when
going
you
to
ran,
shoot. Why
you
does
wouldn't
she?
even
Why?
say you
I guess
were
they all
for
have two
15 weeks.
microphones
What
on.
I'm saying to the American people is,
just not
let's
true.
see what we
just
can
not true.
agree on. Let's bring people together and
I
decide
think I could
what we
do
can
his
agree on.
voice as an impersonation,
I will
but I
sign
can't do
anything where we can get
blackface,
60
so.
Senate votes, but don't make the American people think that you're going to push something on them when we don't even have the votes
He's
in the
mad
Senate.
as
It's
hell,
important
dude.
that we're honest about
gay
that.
Let me go to
mad.
Mr. Ramaswamy. Would you support a 15-week
Ramaswamy.
limit? What is the path forward on this issue?
I just wanted to say, I mean, I think Nikki Haley did invoke being honest. And
Nikki
I just wanna give
Haley's
credit to Tim
testicles
Scott. He's
contains
honest
her
about
husband's.
where he
Nikki
stood.
Haley's necklace
And I
contains
think
her
you should
husband's
be honest,
testicles,
not
says
making a
Sir Tim.
political calculus, but to say, if a bill is served up, would you sign
I just
it?
realized
Here's
that
my
race
view on this.
banning
Speaking as a
isn't on
man, they
this,
say men have trouble speaking on this issue.
dais.
I don't think we need to be that way.
No, yeah.
It was
Mike
my
Pence is
home
stuck in
state
the middle of
Ohio.
Iowa.
I'm
He's
upset about
out of
this
gas.
yesterday, that passed a
Can't figure out why.
constitutional amendment that now effectively codifies a
So
right
we
to
got Haji
abortion
here,
all the
but
way
we
up to
don't
the time
have,
of birth.
He
without
dropped out of the
parental
race.
consent. Why? It's back to that Republican culture of losing. The Republicans did
dropped
not
out
have
already?
an alternative amendment or vision on the table. I know Ohio. I was born, raised, and I lived there. It's representative of the country. If in the state
Born
of
and raised in
Ohio, we
Ohio?
talked about access to contraception, adoption, and also here's the missing
He's like,
ingredient
I used to
in this
fuck
movement.
lots of bitches and
Sexual
contraception was important.
responsibility for men. We live in an era of reliable genetic paternity tests that are 100% reliable. So we can say men deserve more responsibility. So we can tell women we're all in this together. It's not men's rights versus women's rights. It's about human rights. And I come back to that case that Clarence Thomas spoke of. A pregnant woman walking down the street. She's assaulted. The unborn child dies in that assault. You find me
this scenario?
one person in this country who says that that criminal does not deserve liability for that death. You won't find one.
Of course.
That says we share the same instincts on this issue, but we require, I believe, a different generation of
Ramaswamy,
leadership
thank you.
to actually lead us forward. And
I
unite the
feel like
country on this.
Vivek, if he were
Thank you.
president, would
Thank you,
turn
Mr.
the White House
Ramaswamy.
into
Governor
the
Chris
Phi
Christie,
Kappa
as you know,
Alpha house
federal limits
at
are
everybody's
important to a lot
college.
of Republicans. Where do you stand on this issue, and what is the path forward for Republicans?
For 50 years,
I've eaten
conservative
tires.
lawyers
I've eaten so
have
many
been arguing
tires.
that the federal government should have absolutely nothing to do with this issue constitutionally because it's nowhere in the Constitution.
Why is he wearing a
And then
purple tie?
Dobbs
Was it
comes,
Stacey
and we
Abrams? That's what
finally
I'm talking
gain that
about. Stacey
victory,
Abrams.
which was the creation of a constitutional right out of thin air that didn't exist. And now we have people running to say, let's short circuit the states from doing what they need to do, and let's go right to some type of federal ban at a certain number of weeks. And people on the stage have been all over the place, 20 weeks, 15 weeks, 12, 6. Look, the Founders were really smart. And this is an issue that should be decided in each
Christie's
state.
just upset he wasn't
And
vice
I trust
president.
the people of this country.
He held a grudge
state by
against
state
you
to make the call for themselves. Now, it's going to lead to a lot of divergence. In Oklahoma, you can't get an abortion unless the life
He
of the
shouldn't
mother
have
is
fallen
at risk.
asleep
In my
during
home
that
state of New
speech I was
Jersey,
giving.
it goes up to 9 months.
Well,
since
look
you get
how
an
he's
abortion.
like
I
leaned
find that
over,
morally
like he's just like
reprehensible.
there's
But
flatulence.
that is what the
just
people of our
nonstop
state have
from him.
voted
It's
for.
disgusting.
And we should not short circuit that process until every state's people have the right to weigh in on it.
I think Stacey
But
Abrams
here's
would
the
whip
bigger
his
issue,
ass in a
Kirsten.
sumo wrestling
The bigger
fight,
issue is,
personally.
and Tim began to touch on this.
Oh,
We're not
did he?
pro-life for the whole life. To be pro-life for the whole life means that the life of a 16-year-old drug addict on the floor of the county lockup is precious, and we should get treatment for her to restore her life. The 52-year-old who's drug addicted should make sure that any of his children who who he's passed that addiction on to are treated well too. Pro-life's not just in the womb, Kirsten, it's for the whole life.
All right, Governor, thank you. Candidates, thank you. We're going to take a final break, and when we come back, we'll hear from all of you with your closing statements. This is the NBC News Republican presidential debate.
Yes, it is the NBC News Republican debate. So what did you think about that segment, Mr. President?
I mean, yawn. They all bore me.
They are very boring, and they're not the only one who seems to consciously try to bring a little flair is Vivek, but even he has kind of, not been that exciting or attention grabbing since the beginning. That's what you have to do.
Adrenochrome he's ramped up on, starting to wear off.
He is, yeah. I mean, how long does that stuff last? Because he tapered out a little bit. Maybe there's a little fentanyl in it. I don't know. But Mr. President, you do these 2-hour stand-up comedy routines at your rallies, and
new material every week.
Every single week it's new material. I loved what you did a few weeks ago about how you're going to quit doing politics and you're going to start a WNBA basketball team, and you're going to get LeBron and a bunch of people to transition and dominate forever. I think that's a great.
That's one of the plans. I can do it.
I have another thing I wanted to show you from Nikki Haley's daughter. So that was my favorite moment. I think it's going to be hard to top the Vivek bringing up Nikki Haley's daughter on TikTok. Here's Nikki Haley's daughter at her wedding, and there's Nikki Haley right there. And it says, Nikki Haley faces backlash wearing off-white at daughter's wedding. Honestly, it looks like a cum-stained dress, a completely cum-stained dress, in my opinion. Why would she wear off-white? I don't know, but I would like to see, if somebody is listening who's good at Photoshop, please take this image and Photoshop Tim Scott's head onto this guy's body, because this is a young Tim Scott who's married to Nikki Haley's daughter, and I would like that to become a thing. Does that not look like him, Mr. President?
I'd be careful, Brad. The last time I did something like that, people got mad because Russia tried to hack Hillary Clinton's emails.
Right, because everybody treated like you were very serious about asking for her emails. So what do you think of the moderators, Mr. President?
I feel like there's only one of them.
It's
one of them. It's that pit bull of a woman.
She is a pit bull of a woman. She has Zoom. She has a real life Zoom filter, and she is like a pit bull, kind of. You perfectly. That's exactly what I was trying to pinpoint on her. She's a pit bull with flawless Zoom skin. It's like she bought it's like she went to some like beauty care and it said Zoom face, and she just put it on. But she has kind of a square jaw, like she'll bite you,
Yeah, it's like the mix between one of those makeup filters and the Muscle Man.
Yeah, she does look like the Muscle Man. So, what do you think of? What do you think? Are you familiar at all with the new Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson? Have you learned anything about him yet?
I don't know too much about Mike.
Mike Johnson. Johnson leading a collection of assholes is the way I described it. I think that you might enjoy something like this, Mr. President. I might get you this for Christmas right here. Hold on a second. Here we go. What would you think about if you got one of these in your stocking? A Stacey Abrams action figure.
Oh my God, that thing is hideous.
It's got the gap in the teeth. It looks like it has Barack Obama behind it, and she's waving to people because everybody loves her. They're going to be bringing her back around.
So what do do you also like? So is it like G.I. Joe? Can you get a bunch of like crazy looking BLM rioters too?
Yeah, she's the leader. There's other little tiny figures of her activist BLM people, and the evil people are the white Republicans mostly.
Those evil white Republicans.
And the cars are all electric cars that they drive. And the mission is always vote harvesting for Stacey Abrams. Stacey Abrams will be back very soon, I promise you, because 2024 is coming around, and she's the vote harvesting bitch. Let's get Tim Scott back. Tim Scott must be talking about his girlfriend. Tim, the heterosexual Scott. Just tell us the truth, Tim.
Victimhood and start choosing victory. We should stop kneeling in protest and start kneeling in prayer. There are basic truths.
I think
that built this
it'd be a
country.
hilarious
If
sketch
you're able-bodied
coming
in
up with
America,
what are the best
you
lines
work.
like this
If
we
you take
can
out a loan,
put
you
together
pay it back.
for debate.
If you commit a violent crime, you go to jail. And if God made you a man, you play sports against men. I do not just want to.
Audience, please.
I do not just want to win the battle against Joe Biden. I want us together to win the war for our Christian conservative
Senator
values
Scott.
that changed my life.
Senator Scott, thank you.
War on
Governor Christie,
Biden.
you have
That's
one
why I'm
minute
asking
for your
you
closing
for your
Me
vote.
and Nikki's daughter, my wife.
Thank you for hosting tonight. Listen, it's a gift to be an American.
Oh, very
And I'm
sweet.
running for president of the United States
He's
because
not
I'm
running
tired.
at all.
I'm tired of seeing the division. I'm tired of seeing the anger. And I could see in the eyes of Americans
And
their
he's tired
exhaustion.
of his DoorDash.
Their exhaustion from the
delivery
petty
being
personal
screwed up.
Tired having to
that
walk
have
to the
taken over
door
this country
for DoorDash.
over the last number of years. I'm running for president to be a president of consequence.
I'm walking
to do
for
the big
president.
things, to make sure that America's role in the world stays number one, that we stand up for our friends and allies around the world.
Everybody knows
and
he's
we
not
stand up
really
for what we
running to
believe in
win.
right here at
He
home.
has like
And it's not to
2%.
eliminate our differences. Our differences has always been our strength as a country.
He's the
not our
Republican
weakness.
mouthpiece of the
But you can't
left
truly
wing
say
media.
you love
is what he
America
is.
unless you're ready to open up your heart to every American.
Having a job.
I'm going to open up my heart to every American as president, and I will make sure that I return honesty, integrity to the Oval Office. We deserve and should accept nothing less.
Governor, thank you very much. Let's go to Mr. Ramaswamy now.
Ramaswamy.
1 minute.
Chris Christie with the
We talked a
asshole
lot about
fryer.
foreign wars tonight, but we're in the middle of a war right here at home. It's a war not between black
He's
and
so
white or
matter of
Democrat and
fact
Republican.
with his facial
It's between
expressions.
those of us who believe in our founding ideals and love this country and a
Country.
fringe minority who hates the United States of America.
Just rip
And
your
I think it's
shirt
gonna
off,
take
dude.
a
Just go
commander-in-chief
full
to lead
WWE.
us to victory in that war, who first of all knows that we're in a war. Second of all, can't be captured by the special interests along the way. But third is from the next generation, somebody with fresh legs to lead us to victory.
And a young
I'll shut
dick.
down the deep state. I'll declare economic independence from China. I'll keep us out of World War III and then revive national pride in this country. I also want to close with one message to the Democrat Party. End this farce that Joe Biden is going to be your
nobody said
nominee.
go fuck
We
yourself.
know he's not even the president of the United States. He's a puppet for the managerial class. So have the
That's
guts
true.
to step up and be honest about who you're actually going to put up.
That's
So
true.
we can have an honest debate. Biden should step aside, end his candidacy now, so we can see
Candidacy?
whether it's Newsom or Michelle
the
Obama or
puppet
whoever
for
else.
Black Rock.
Just tell us the truth.
Well,
so
Oh,
we can
man.
have an honest debate.
He should have called her Michael Obama. I wish you'd have called her Michael Obama. It would have been perfect.
Ambassador Haley, you have 1 minute for your closing.
Thank you.
What a
The world is
cold
on
bitch.
fire. We have a war
And
in
I'm
Europe.
the ice
The
We've got a
world
war
is
in the
on
Middle
fire,
East.
and the only
We've
thing
got
that
China
can
on the
fix it
march.
is the ice queen.
It is very important that we know how to defend our freedoms and how to defeat terrorism and socialism. We have to
Her
know the difference
husband
between good and
is
evil.
in a corner
We
crying
have to
because
know the
this
difference
debate is
between right
ending
and wrong.
and she will
we
soon be
need to know
home.
that a strong
Brad, I
America
wanna say
doesn't
this.
start
Blessed
wars,
are
a
the
strong America
peacemakers,
prevents wars.
for they shall be
And the
called
way we
the
can
children
focus
of
on
God.
that is to make sure we
Say that
go
again.
back to
5'9", and that's what I am.
and
I'm
be
a
strong and
peacemaker.
proud of that. And
You
we
are.
can't do that. We can't win the fights of the 21st century with politicians from the 20th century. We have to move forward.
I
And
bet
we
Nikki
can
Haley
do this. I
backstabbed
know we
every
can do this.
female
So
best friend
join
she
our
ever
movement.
had. That's
Go
what
to
chicks do to each other
NikkiHaley.com,
now.
and we will once again show
Chicks
what
are
America
fucking
that's strong and proud
cutthroat.
looks like. God bless.
Ambassador,
God,
thank
and
you.
she puts God bless. I will kill every foreigner with a nuclear bomb. God bless.
DeSantis, your closing. You have 1 minute.
We must reverse our country's decline, and that is
Did he
going to
just call
require
him Thanos?
leadership.
Did
I will
what?
take the hits.
Did he just call him Thanos?
The barbs, 'cause it's not about me.
Yeah, they call
it's
it out
about
at the same
you.
time.
It's not
Mr.
about the
Thanos.
past, it's about your future. We are going to fight for you. I am going to win for you.
They
and
should
your
have to wear
family,
furry
and I'm
suits
gonna
during
lead
these
this country's
debates.
revival As a
and
veteran
win our
of the
respect.
Iraq War and in the Navy, I will always
What
put service
animal
above
would you
self
make?
as president.
Radar.
As the father of 3
You
young
think
kids,
about
I'm going
it.
to ensure that this country is left
I-
to the
I
next
think that
generation
he-
in better shape than we found it. And as the governor
I
of Florida,
think
I
that
delivered on
he
all
would be
my
a possum.
promises, and you can trust me to deliver for you as
No.
the president of the United States. I am asking for your vote.
Maybe an armadillo?
I'll be a nominee that
An
will be able to
armadillo,
win the
yeah.
election. I will be a leader you can be proud of, and as your president, I will not let you down. God bless you.
Like so he did okay with his closing statement. I want to root for DeSantis, but the awkwardness is just not sustainable. It's not, it's going to cause climate change to destroy
the next
the earth.
line says if the audience can
Look
hold
at
their
this guy.
applause. That didn't work
This
out. But
guy
anyway, for just a
sounds
few
like
more
he's
seconds,
infecting
I'll ask you
people
to
when he
just hold the
talks.
applause.
I'm sorry, he
On
does.
behalf of my fellow moderators, I
And
want to
there's
thank
all
the candidates
square
for their
face
time and for this
Zoom
spirited
filter
debate.
lady.
Really good, deep conversation, and we appreciate you all being here. Thank you as well to our
Look
wonderful
how much
hosts at the
wider
Adrian
Chris
Arts
Christie is than the
Performing
podium.
Arts Center.
He's like
On
3
behalf of
podiums.
the Republican National Committee and all
God
of us
forbid he
at
falls
NBC
over.
News,
Everybody
good
will
night,
be dead.
everyone from Miami.
That's it. So there was a prediction in the chat. Look at them shake hands. Let's see. Shakes hands with those two. Chris Christie. Chris Christie probably licked his hand before he shook Nikki Haley's hand. And there was a prediction, I think, from Sir Tim, who believes that possibly Vivek, was it Vivek, and Nikki Haley are going to have hate sex after this debate. Do you think that those are the two that are going to have hate sex? I think it's probably going to be Chris Christie and Tim Scott.
I don't think Nikki. I don't think Nikki Haley's hooking up with Vivek. I'll tell you that's for sure.
Yeah, Vivek might want to, but Nikki
If
Haley,
she's upset about Tim Scott being her son-in-law,
she is very
she's
mad
definitely
about
not
that.
hooking up with Vivek. I'll tell you that's for sure.
That is my favorite part of the debate, that we discovered that Nikki Haley's son-in-law looks like a young Tim Scott, who everybody thinks is gay. Oh my! What are your overall thoughts? Who won the debate? Who would you choose as a vice president?
All right, so I'm gonna tell you this, Brad. Chris Christie, he's out. He's out.
What,
to
you're not
lunch.
gonna pick Chris Christie?
No, he's completely out.
He can eat the enemies.
That's not a bad idea. Maybe we'll put him on a giant slingshot.
A very strong one. Who needs a border wall when you have Chris Christie laying down? Yeah, she will peg him.
Well,
Thomas.
we could stretch Chris Christie across the border and use him as the wall.
Yeah, because it doesn't matter how far you stretch him. There's still enough of him that nobody can climb over.
Yeah, he's a very doughy man.
He's like the plastic man.
Very doughy, doughy Chris Christie. He's who's that little doughboy that's on the biscuits?
Chris Christie.
Yeah, that's exactly what he looks like. That doughboy on the biscuits.
Yes, Chris. That's like
The Pillsbury doughboy, Chris
Pillsbury
Christie.
Chris Christie. So Chris
Right.
Christie's out. So that leaves it down to 4.
Chris
Doughboy.
I'm trying to Pillsbury and Christie.
Pillsbury Christie. That's a good nickname for him. Chris Pillsbury Christie.
Pillsbury Dough Christie.
Mm-hmm. How is he going to fix this country when he's all stuck up in his Pillsbury dough
mansion, taking out bridges for old ladies,
killing people's grandmothers out of spite?
Yeah, I don't have any grandmother deaths under my belt.
No, you didn't kill anybody's grandmothers for no reason, shutting down a highway. That is one thing you have over.
I
Chris
did
Christie.
blow up a mountain.
Yeah, with the mother of all bombs.
That's right, the Moab.
Right.
So going down the list, Nikki Haley, I could see her as, Secretary of Defense, possibly. She's got a lot of spark to her.
She does have some spark to her.
You know,
Do you
but
think
that-
she'd be too trigger happy?
Put that spark to use in the DoD.
Do you think you could trust her not to go behind your back?
That's a good question, Brad. That's a good question. I have a hard time trusting my own wife not to go behind my back.
Melania, really?
All of them. It's just their way, Brad. It's just their way. It's unfortunate, but that's the way God made them.
Cold-hearted. Yeah. I have to say, you had the most beautiful first wife in all of history. The only one that rivals it would be JFK's wife.
Maybe Ronald Reagan.
Ronald Reagan's wife was sexy as hell. There's no doubt about it. But she was more of a hate, like Mary F. Kill. She is more of an F because of her
that
sex appeal.
Nancy Reagan and that Martha Washington.
Nothing like a little Nancy Reagan, Martha Washington lesbo porn, right, Mr. President?
Let me tell you about that. We'll have a painting commission.
I'll put it in the White House.
And we'll put it in the Lincoln bedroom. We'll invite you to stay there.
There will never be a person walk in there without jizzing themselves on a tour
Speaking
again.
of jizzing themselves.
It'd be called the Jizz Tour.
You were calling that guy Cum Throat, the moderator?
He was Cum Throat. The moderator was. He had these. It's like they brought somebody, I'm sorry, that was dying of AIDS and had them be a moderator.
He's like a softcore Bond villain.
I felt like he should have been inside of a hazmat suit or blocked off in plastic. With every time he talked, I felt like somebody got infected with something. Am I wrong in that assessment?
Hey, I'm the one who said he was like a softcore Bond villain.
And that is Bond villains. Bond villains are like, I will kill you with my contagion.
Yeah, they're like Klaus Schwab from the World Economic Forum.
What are your thoughts on Klaus Schwab?
I think he's a real life Bond villain, Brett. You know, and that's the shame because we don't have any good guys left. We have me and Rand Paul.
You guys are the only two.
We're the only Patriots left. Except for the Patriots listening to this broadcast right now.
I agree that Klaus Schwab is a villain and people like George Soros. I heard a rumor, I don't know if it's true, but I heard a rumor that George Soros' son, who he gave power to the Soros, whatever, all of his shit, Open Society Foundation, gave it over to his son who's like 40 years old or something like that. I heard a rumor that Alex Soros lives in Marietta, Georgia, which would not surprise me because you know who the biggest donors to the Stacey Abrams gubernatorial campaigns were both times? Well, they were the entire Soros family, including Alex Soros, who repeatedly donated the max amount to all of her campaigns. In fact, Stacey Abrams got millions of dollars to launch her career about maybe 12 years ago when it comes to trying to vote harvest. Her whole vote harvesting and get out the vote career was funded by the Soros family. So I have a sneaking suspicion that Stacey Abrams and George Soros' son are banging each other. Thoughts?
I mean, Stacey Abrams did write erotica novels, did she not?
She under Selena Montgomery, she did. She was an erotica novelist, standing at 6 feet tall.
You know, we should get some of those books.
And we should read them. We should act them out. Dude, that's a good idea. Cam had wanted. I think that's a great idea. You know, I didn't want to pay for one of her books, but she's been writing those erotica novels for like 12 years. You know that
she's got to be good at them now.
She started off as an actress. She went to a drama school in Decatur, and then she switched over to politics. I'm going to show you something. Can you see that, Mr. President? It says Stakeholder Capitalism. Klaus Schwab, the book there. You see that? So
yeah.
I left. I had this book sitting on a table over to my left, and I left to go to the grocery store for I was there for maybe 20 minutes, and my dog Edmund, who's he's the most award-winning pupper on the planet. He's a beautiful, wonderful, sweet dog, a really good, great boy. I left him here by himself for 20 minutes. He's out. I mean, I always leave him here by himself unless I could take him with me. But I come back after going to the grocery store, and I walk in, and I look over at that table at where this book, and it has since been sanitized, okay? But directly on this book was dog urine. It wasn't all over the table. It wasn't on the floor, and he doesn't pee in the house. But what he had done while I was gone is he had jumped up onto the table. Like, he can leap over fences. He's like a Michael Jordan dog. He's got he can jump like a kangaroo. He jumped up on the table, and he peed directly on to Klaus Schwab's Stakeholder Global Takeover Capitalism book, and the pee was contained within the book. It didn't even spread. It was such targeted urine. And while I had to clean the book off, I was so proud of him for knowing who our enemies are and going after them. It was a very good boy.
It sounds like a really good boy.
He is a good boy. He's not like Joe Biden's dogs who bite people and get sent off. I mean, there probably are good dogs. They probably get abused by
Secret Service agents.
Yeah, I think Biden probably abuses or neglects them. It's not their fault, right, Mr. President?
Well, Biden's a jackass. We all know that.
You know, my favorite part about the only reason that Biden got a dog, there was a whole story about a wags to riches story is how the news reported it. It was the first ever pound puppy to go from not a kennel, but a shelter, whatever, and be brought to the White House. And the whole reason they did that, Mr. President, was because you made a point to say, what am I going to do with a dog? Can you imagine me walking a dog? And they felt they needed to show some sort of Biden loves dogs humanity, bringing this wags to riches story, first of all time, and all of the reports compared it to how you were so cold and didn't have a dog, only to about 11 months later, the Biden family shipped that dog away to God. Maybe they killed it. Who knows? But they got rid of it because they actually didn't give a rat's ass. Thoughts on that?
I had heard that they actually sent the dog to a Siberian work camp.
In Russia?
Yeah, that's right. Siberia.
There's a rumor that President Biden tried to get Kamala Harris to wear a cat furry and be his pet cat. Have you heard anything about that?
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised by it. They're, doing all kinds of weird stuff in the White House right now.
A lot of weird sex stuff going on.
Biden's Indian Grove and all that stuff. It's all real. They're all worshiping Moloch.
All right, it's like the whole culture was created by Lindsey Graham and his weird sex club. So we have narrowed it down. Who? Let's continue to get to who you would pick as your vice.
Oh yeah, Lindsey Graham's a real freak.
That's what I've heard. I heard he's very popular at the underground rock
rooms. We've erased Chris Christie. He's out.
And I got to tell you, that takes a very big eraser to get rid of him.
Yeah, it's like one of those cartoon-sized erasers. The giant hand has to come in and hold him down and start scrubbing. That'll probably be the first bath he's had, too, in a really long time.
Yeah, right. He boycotted bath a long time ago. He has to be forced.
He has to get one of those special showers with the arm handles in them.
Yeah, well, I heard he hires prostitutes to dress like giant sandwiches and scrub them down with sponges. He'll only be bathed by sandwiches.
Giant sandwiches, and the sponges are also types of bread.
It's like bread and ketchup shaped. He actually gets he lathers in ketchup. He doesn't use soap. That's why he stinks.
Smells of vinegar.
So he's a good person to not. You don't want your vice president smelling of vinegar, or Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, so I don't want the grandma killer Chris Christie anywhere near me.
Of course.
I gave him a chance once. He failed. He ate the chance.
What? So is that what happened? What was the moment that broke everything off, the falling out for you two?
I mean, he fell asleep during my speech for one thing. He couldn't keep his hands off of the hose. We after those events, we'd hand out ho-hos to children.
Yep.
Homeless children, for that matter. And Chris Christie, by the time we got done, they'd all been eaten.
Is it true he ate 35% of the Oval Office?
At one point in time, he did. We had tried building the Oval Office out of gingerbread at the time. It was around Christmas. Yeah. In retrospect, it wasn't a very good idea, but we were trying to do something new. And he ate right through the gingerbread.
Yeah, it's like he's triggered like a zombie in brains. There's nothing you can do once that switch flips. So he's out. Of the 4 candidates, Nikki Haley, heterosexual Tim Scott, tippy toes DeSantis, and
it's for me. It's kind of a draw between tippy toes DeSantis, old radar on DeSantis, and Tim Scott, heterosexual Tim Scott. I love my big gay black vice president.
That would be a requirement, though, right? That he has to embrace that role.
So, and then Vivek, he's just too young.
What kind of role would you give Vivek?
Maybe Secretary of Treasury or one of the secretary jobs.
The enunciator in chief?
Yeah, we could put him in charge of talking to the press.
Yeah, he could be the spokesperson. He could be the new Jen Psaki. Actually, Vivek would be a hilarious press secretary. That's a really great idea. That would be funny as shit, Vivek as press secretary. I doubt he would do that, but that would be really funny. So interesting. You still have. Why do you have DeSantis? DeSantis has. So is it because like he doesn't have to be the public relations person out front as vice president? Because he is good in some of the stuff that he does. It's just
and look, Brad, it's like you said, it's the opportunity to take him back under my wing.
Put him under your wing, yeah. Mold him.
Take him under my wing, and then we have DeSantis for 8 more years,
And that could be good. I just hope that
we destroy the deep state.
Take it down, slit throats day one, his motto. What I worry about is that he won't come around, and I think he can, though. I think he can learn it. But he comes off to me as, you've seen American Psycho, right?
Yeah, with Batman.
With Batman. He comes off to me as American Psycho, but Munchkin size. And he's not Munchkin size. He's actually not that short of a person. Everybody's focused on his height because of him wearing heels. I don't think he's 5'11", like they say, but the average height in America.
Were they pumps? Like, what type of heels are we
did you not see that? I'll show you. So this was that was one of the most clever jokes I've ever seen in a debate, to be honest with you. Like Chris Christie's jokes are like, "Come here, Donald Duck Trump." They're so awful, but Vivek took down both Haley and DeSantis. That's a good roast joke. And let me show you what.
Chris Christie's about as likable as an angry lobster.
Yeah, which is very unlikable. Nobody's ever befriended an angry lobster.
I mean, maybe Kramer from Seinfeld, but that would be about it.
What did you think of Kramer's N-word set?
I could have done without it, but he's a funny, funny man. We should all get second chances.
Yeah.
Especially Michael Richards. Very nice man. Very lovely.
And even Chappelle defended him. From what I understand, they say he was being way too experimental and just got... Because he's a very in-character guy, and I guess he just chose the N-word character.
Is this up? Is this the topic of the media again?
Yeah, the media is bringing it back in. They're using him as
really. They're bringing back Michael Richards again.
They're not bringing Michael Richards back, but it made me think of it. I'm trying to pull up DeSantis high heels here for you. Who is that chick, man? That's a hot chick. DeSantis. Mia Khalif, who is a porn star, says DeSantis should be in jail. Okay.
For what? For what?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
I'm under 91 charges right now. 91.
You are facing a lot of charges. It's impressive, Mr. President.
91 charges.
How are you handling this judge in New York who is just openly saying that he doesn't like you on this fraud case where they're trying to act like they wouldn't buy Mar-a-Lago? So everybody on the planet who had $18 million, if they could buy Mar-a-Lago for $18 million, would do it because they could flip it for a substantial profit. But this judge just hates you. And there was these tweets from his wife that not surfaced, but it was in a news story. His wife, who is the judge of this case that you're involved in New York for the fraud charges, does nothing but tweet, "I hate Trump," and Trump hate memes all the time. It's crazy.
It's a kangaroo court, Brad.
It really is a kangaroo court.
It's a joke, and honestly, it's going to give me the opportunity to bring forth election fraud evidence to the public. I hope the people are watching the televised trials, because it's going to get real hot. It's going to be a hot time in a cold town in New York City.
Well, that's how you're doing your campaigning now, is through those debates. Chris Christie's wife kind of looks like him.
I have to, because I'm there, 2 times a week when I could be in North Carolina.
You don't have to be there, though, but I think you're going there to kind of make a point.
I could be in the great state of Georgia right now, Brad.
It is a great state. Do you see that image on screen there? So the story is that DeSantis has been wearing high heel type shoes, and let me see if I can find a video.
I mean, those look like cowboy boots.
A little bit. Let me find this video here, because it does look like he's wearing heels.
Maybe they're Beetle boots. You gonna blame him for wearing Beetle boots?
I don't blame him. I think that he has been wearing these heels to make himself seem taller, and I think it was a mistake. I think he should own his height. It doesn't matter. Who cares?
Yeah,
there's never been a president over 6 feet, but it doesn't matter. It's all about what you project. I know. How tall are you? You're 6'2"?
That's right, Brad. 6 foot 2 inches tall.
What about Barron? He's 7'3", 7'4".
Yeah, Barron is actually part Nephilim.
Really? How did that work?
His mother, who is a fallen angel, we made love and produced that wonderful baby boy.
Are you telling me that Melania is not Barron's mother?
No, I'm telling you that Melania is a fallen angel, Brad.
I mean, she's beautiful. She's mesmerizing. I do have to say that. All right, let me show you this video. I can't believe you haven't seen this video, Mr. President. This was the latest.
You've been in
court.
91 charges.
Right. Yeah, you've been in court. What do you think about Fannie Willis in Georgia here, trying to get you with those racketeering charges?
I mean, she's got the same name as a bank.
And an ass,
Yeah, big ass.
You're being screwed in Georgia by a black ass,
Well, Brad, if there's anywhere to be screwed by a black ass, it's definitely Atlanta, Georgia. They say it's the blackest city in the United States.
I had no idea. Maybe it is, but not every black person in Atlanta is pro Stacey Abrams or Fannie Willis.
That's right. There's a lot of lovely black people that are pro Donald Trump.
They call her. They call her Fannie Willis now. They try to make it sound like she's French or something.
Or like she's some small deer.
Yeah, she's a deer that survived, and now she's
gonna. I'll tell you what, though, she's gonna be a deer in these headlights, Brad.
Hell yeah. Well, so why can't they just put the video of him walking? I've seen it a million times.
I'll tell you what else you can see on YouTube is that video of me coming down the escalator. Same one 2015. The Simpsons.
Well, yeah, I can't seem to find the DeSantis video, but I did find this Chris Christie video, and this is always something that's fun to watch.
Hopefully it's him eating.
It's not him eating. It's him. You see that? It's him getting in the face of a Cubs fan. Can you see that?
Yeah, I did see this actually.
Look at him. He's just trying to intimidate. Look at those pants he's wearing.
He's somebody's laughing. He looks like.
Oh, you cut out a little bit there.
You have somebody laughing in his face during that. Meanwhile, Chris Christie looks like the penguin from the 1960s Batman.
Yeah, he does. This is a guy he got in his face.
I called him a hypocrite because I thought.
What did he say? I didn't Never saw this.
When he initially was going up the stairs, I yelled his name, and then I told him that he sucked. I called him a hypocrite because I thought...
I love that he's holding this giant, was this a fucking huge hot dog in his hand? What is that? Are those cheese fries? He still got those cupped in his hand.
I called him a hypocrite because I thought...
I think they're nachos.
It needed to be said.
He's such a bully. Look at him. How do you take this guy seriously? So this is a CNN piece, right? A hit piece. And now Chris Christie is CNN's guy.
Don Christie.
Mm-hmm. His son works for the Brewers, huh? But 2 weeks earlier, what happened 2 weeks earlier? 2 weeks earlier, fans at the Cardinals-Mets game booed Christie for catching a foul ball. Yeah, because Chris Christie is like historically the least liked governor of any state of all time. He had the lowest approval rating ever. It was seriously like 10 or less %. And he's running for president. He started off with 0%. And yet he's in all these debates because he is a hired, clearly compromised with obviously some disgusting material, gun. It's just... the biggest sellout you'll ever see. Last thing, then we'll get out of here, Mr. President. I appreciate the time you spent with me. I've enjoyed it. I don't know anything about Chris Christie's wife.
To say about Chris Christie again. It's hard to realize that I've actually come to a blank with such a big target. Oh yeah, he's an overgrown baby.
You see the overgrown baby? He's wearing the bow tie here.
He's a big Gerber baby.
He is a big Gerber baby. Doesn't his wife kind of look like him? She's probably much nicer. But like you look at that one there, doesn't that kind of look like him? You cut out a little bit there. And right here, she thinks he's funny. Look at him. And here... Are you still there, Mr. President? It shorted out a little bit.
Yeah, I'm here.
What are your thoughts on this image of Chris Christie?
I don't think he should be wearing those pants, for one thing.
Who advised him on his wardrobe and that belt? Like, just pull your pants up a little higher, Mr. Christie. We want to make sure the fupa is clearly showing.
Yeah, I think he needs a new tailor.
Yeah. I feel sorry for his wife, actually. She's probably a nice person. It's probably a political... Look at this, dude. Who's prettier right here? Miss Melania or Mr. Chris Christie?
Chris Christie's head looks like an egg.
It looks like a boiled egg that's like collapsing at the bottom to me. It's just... Look at him. He's like raping this girl here. You see that?
The yolk hasn't fully formed.
Yeah, it's unfully formed yolk. This one says, Chris Christie released from hospital a week after seeking COVID-19 treatment, and apparently he's trying to take this woman home with him, whoever that might be. Is it his wife? Surely not.
So I guess in New Jersey, you go get the vaccine and they give you an escort?
Yeah, that was part of the trade-off. You know, they did that in some countries. If you got the vaccine, you come show your card and you could have sex with a prostitute. What do you think about this image of Chris Christie on the golf course? Look at that look on his face. Oh, man, where'd he go? Look at that.
I mean, he's just a round man.
He does look like, what's the children's thing? Humpty Dumpty. Yeah, he looks like Humpty Dumpty there.
Yeah, all of Trump's sources and all of Trump's men couldn't put Chris Christie Dumpty back together again.
There's a young Chris Christie right after sex with President Obama. Do you think President Obama is gay? I mean, President Obama's kind of admitted he's gay, but what do you think?
What do I think?
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen all those pictures with Michelle's bulge.
She's got a nice bulge. Why is Chris Christie's pants up under his nipples in every photo he has? This is ridiculous. Can you imagine this person being president with his pants pulled up under his nipples like that? Like, you can't be. That's not presidential.
Maybe you should try suspenders.
Look at this guy, man. He has no. He is a disgusting. Chris Christie's an asshole, man.
He's morbidly obese.
He is. He really is. It's unhealthy. And
his mouth is a gaping black hole for junk food.
It's a home for cocks. It's a cock home. Like that's where dozens and dozens of cocks go to live.
You're talking about the chicken, right?
I'm talking about penises for Chris Christie. And here he is doing a Hitler impersonation. His wife thinks it's hilarious. Man, look at that. What's he saying right there? Hail Hoagie! And his wife, they thinks it's funny as shit. New Jersey hated Chris Christie. They hated him.
I don't know many people who really like him. He's not a very likable person.
I just don't get how America is. Look, I don't know who this is. Old lady is. He's about to rape. But we're so divided and conquered, Mr. President. I'm sorry to ramble, but it's just so in our face and abrasive how they're just dominating. They're cucking us all with their divide and conquer strategies. They're using identity politics with Israel and Gaza and with Ukraine and Russia and with black and white and with LGBT and straight and trans. It's all fucking identity politics used to fucking turn us against each other while these assholes who don't actually give a shit about all of that conquer us. And what are you going to do? Are you going to stop this conquering by these Klaus Schwabs who routinely like to roll down 90-foot hill cliffs, folded up and sucking their own dicks? Are you going to end this monstrosity going on?
Well, Brad, you know, we've been doing a lot of watching. We've been doing a lot of collecting. We caught them all a long, long time ago, and the hens are coming in to lay their eggs. The cows are coming home to be milked. It's going to be a hot time in a cold town. I'm going to deliver some election fraud evidence. And, you know, all the movies are going to be playing at once, Brad.
Hell yeah, Mr. President. Okay, now, do you want to give your choice, your definite choice? Is it going to be DeSantis for vice president before we get out of here? Is that who you're picking?
I mean, I'm down between DeSantis and Tim Scott. Really, it's a toss up right now.
I go Tim Scott because you can't lose with a gay. He's got to come out as gay.
I mean, look, he's a great ace in the sleeve. Am I right? He's not a trump card, but he's an ace in the sleeve.
Absolutely. Oh, Stella jumped in the stats here. She's talking about she's sporting one of those Adam's apples, I believe, talking about maybe Chris Christie's wife, and he's really come out of his shell. All right, I really wanted to show you this new AI image of Kamala Harris getting banged by like a giant green alien.
Did you make this?
I didn't. I don't know who made it. Like I'm trying to figure out who did it because I was so impressed. It was something that I've tried to make on Midjourney, but I've been able to get not all the way there, but kind of there. But somebody actually made like a pretty straight up Kamala Harris getting doggy style ragged by like a giant green alien monster. And I'm so envious because I don't know how they did it.
Well, they probably used some Photoshop, some maybe some of their own art, maybe, and
maybe it's got to be something like that.
Manipulated it, you know, and then put it back through. I watched the whole thing on that.
You stay up to date on the AI and the.
You know, I do a lot of art myself. Little painting, little.
You're a regular Hunter Biden.
Yeah, you know, I was inspired by Hunter and George W. Bush to get a hobby while all of this is going on as well. And it's too cold to garden right now. Too cold.
Absolutely. So Thomas says Christie's FUPA for a VP. You could make Chris Christie's FUPA your vice president. I think we can wrap up on that.
I think Chris Christie can fold up into his own butthole.
I think Chris Christie would love to be able to do that.
and just, two gaping black holes pointing right at each other. Actually, it's more like his butthole's a white hole. His mouth is a black hole, and he's just sucking in his own excrement.
Yeah, I think Chris Christie's butthole is his mouth.
And that's how he becomes the giant donut, crispy,
right.
Christie.
This is the origin story of Chris Christie, the giant donut.
Krispy Kreme.
Who sucked the souls away from all of the other donuts on Earth. There must only be one. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you guys in the chats for hanging out and having fun with us.
I'm glad that you guys got to witness the origin of Crispy Christie.
The supervillain. We need to write a comic book about this supervillain. We'll talk to you guys next time. Go ahead.
Like big buttholes too.
Who does?
Donuts a lot of times when the hole's too tight.
That's the only reason some people eat donuts is because they resemble big buttholes to them.
Well, I gotta go. I got court case.
All right, yeah, you got to be in court at like 3:30 in the morning. Thank you, Mr. President. Talk to you guys next time. Have a fantastic rest of your day.